It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Renee, Andy, Alex, they're all here. Yay, Renee's back. We're going to talk about the big rumors about 9 new Macs. We know they're out there, but when are we going to get to buy them? There are still major chip shortages, but Apple might have dodged a bullet in the iPhone factory in China. And NFL Sunday Ticket. It looks like it's Apple's to lose. It's all coming up next on MacBreak Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 814, recorded Tuesday, April 19th, 2022. 8888, Ask Leo. This episode of MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Melissa. The U.S. Postal Service processes more than 98,000 address changes every day. Make sure your customer contact data is up to date. Try Melissa's APIs in the developer portal. It's easy to log on, sign up, and start playing in the API sandbox 24/7. Get started today with 1,000 records cleaned free at melissa.com/twit. And by Hover. Whether you're a developer, photographer, or small business, Hover has something for you to expand your projects and get the visibility you want. Go to hover.com/twit to get 10% off your first purchase of any domain extension for the entire first year. And by Blueland. Stop wasting water and throwing out more plastic. Get Blueland's revolutionary refill cleaning system instead. Right now, save 20% off your first order when you go to blueland.com/MacBreak. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show we cover the latest news from Apple. Oh, Apple, look who's back. Look who's back, Renee Ritchie. YouTube.com/Renee Ritchie of YouTube fame. Hello,
Infamy.
Renee. Infamy.
Hello, Leo. How are
So,
you?
can you
Good to
tell
be back.
us why you were in New York?
I was filming an undisclosed video project with Georgia Dow.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
I just couldn't get the shooting days arranged so that I could get Tuesday off. They're like, no, it took us 8 hours to set this up. You're going to sit down and film, son.
Wow.
I was like, all right.
That's nice. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it does dash my hopes that it was some sort of Apple briefing on the latest M2 MacBook Airs. But okay. I guess.
Well, they did have an event in New York, and I did stop by. They had at the Apple Store at Fifth Avenue. They had the winners of the macro competition, and they had the photography team from
cool.
Apple, like Della Huff, who runs product, and a bunch of the app
that's
engineers
fun.
and a bunch of the photographers. Yeah, that was really nice to see. And they went through the answered questions. They explained stuff. They had macros set up so you could go and shoot all these different objects at macro and test it out. And it was very fun.
Well, hold the thought. Put a pin in it because I want to introduce the rest of the panel. Not that they need any introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Andy Anatko of WGBH at Boston. Hello, Andrew.
Hey there, ho there.
Hey there, hi there, ho there. Also with us from 090.media and officehours.global, Alex Lindsay, who was on Twit on Sunday. So I feel like I just saw you a minute ago.
It's just here.
You were just here. And we even made him sit in the same avatar.
Exactly. I've used this one for a while. I figured, we'll
It's
use it for
good.
another
It's
couple
all
shows.
broken in.
Yeah.
It fits your
I think
butt
that
and everything. Yeah.
I think that the facial capture is working pretty well. It's a little. Yeah, it works pretty well. Yeah.
Your polygon count is enormous.
As always, if you look at the eyes, it's like that sort of dead, sort of like emotionless, like serial killer eyes.
That's
always
psychopathy,
away.
and you're mistaken.
How can you tell the difference? Actually, did you see that they are doing this with Abba? This is completely not anything to do with Apple, but it is kind of a technology thing.
They both start
pretty cool.
with
It's it's a pretty cool setup. They went back and built digital versions of Abba. And I think ILM actually is doing this. They went back and built digital versions, and then they did motion capture with the current the current artists, at their current age, and then they're mapping that back on to the
I'm
CG
showing
characters.
it. If you would show my screen, sorry.
And yeah, it's pretty good stuff. And then essentially they are then doing there's the motion capture with the original artists, and then the original Abba team. And then what they're doing is putting them onto an LED wall that's going to be on stage. And it sounds like the real trick that they're taking advantage of is they're going to build lighting rigs into the theaters so that it's integrating the lighting with the performance that's on stage, because otherwise it would just be an LED wall on the stage with some CG characters. But by
it's not really a
creating that
hologram then. It's a screen.
It may be a hologram, but it'll be very. I mean, it could be, but it will look better.
Don't
if
they
it was
look
on
sad,
LED
Andy?
wall.
Are you laughing at how sad they look in their rubber
I'm just saying
suits?
that the motion capture suits aren't that far off from what they used to wear.
No, I know. That's funny.
Yeah, the funny thing though is, the motion capture suits are you really have to have a lot of self confidence to get into one.
So this is just a big screen. But you're saying because with the practical lighting that makes it
practical lighting in this theater is that's the theory
fools you
behind that.
Well, they had Tupac. That was years ago in a hologram at Coachella.
Right.
And they had Celine Dion sing with Elvis on American Idol many years ago.
And when they say hologram, a lot of times they're still being projected against some. They're projected against some kind of screen. Sometimes it's at an angle. So what they do is it has a slight angle to it and has a bottom projector that goes up. A lot of times the brightness and the quality isn't as high as an LED wall can be. So it depends. They are spending. See, there's the lights that we're talking about. So all of that,
those are
is
real.
going to get tied in. So what'll happen? You can see there the screen is projecting out things, and they're literally integrating all of the things into the screen. So when it does things, so does the rest of the space.
And you see that
really
all the time now in concert performances. I saw a really wild one in the hockey game where they project onto the ice, and it looks like the ice is falling apart, and the Zamboni's going to fall in. And it's very convincing because it has that, they're doing something
Montreal
with 3D.
potholes, Leo. That's nothing.
Was that Montreal?
That's a
Montreal potholes in the ice?
Immersive Design does those. It does that one specifically. Is a company called Immersive Design.
Yeah.
And they do a really good job.
We saw it at the Olympics opening ceremonies, and it's very cool. Yeah.
Their trackers sewn into the NHL players' uniforms now on the shoulders. So
and the puck.
If they want to. Yeah, and the puck too. They made great leaps since that Fox gimmick of, hey, let's get the kids to watch by making the puck into a laser. But it's actually more useful stuff. You can say, well, we want to basically label people so people can follow the action. Given that it's a tiny little, even at HD, it's a tiny dot on a white background. We can do things to make this game more easy to ascertain.
This was
it's also more easy to get data.
Privacy.
Like
this isn't even new. This was 2016, 2017 at the Blackhawks, projecting onto the ice, turning it into a pinball machine. And it's funny. It really does feel like they're coming up out of the screen.
It looks really good from one side.
Right.
Yes.
It looks perfect.
All those ads
from the
are
side that
probably
they're
virtual
shooting, it
too,
looks
right?
really good. It doesn't look the same on both sides.
Right.
You can oversell the billboards.
Yeah.
But you're right, Alex. But I've read an article a couple of weeks ago about how now there's part of negotiations between players' unions and teams is that, look, if you collect data on us, on our performance, that data belongs to us. You can't you then use that data to either improve training models or basically sell this data to the next person who's considering signing us to a contract, so they can find some weird, stupid, unbiased, unfounded algorithmic reason to turn us down.
I don't know why. I don't know what data that they're owning, but I can tell you that I've seen some of the data from some of these sports teams, and it's pretty amazing. It's all your speeds of every play. It is how often you touch the puck, how close you were, how often you're on one side of wherever you are in the quadrants. I mean, it's pretty dense.
So what do they do with that? Do they pivot table it and then change the whole photo?
Pivot table. I like
it. Put one good goon on the ice, one serious enforcer, and that negates all the data.
It's a not go. A not go's checking everybody.
Hit somebody.
When you have that much data, you can do some pretty interesting things. You'll notice things that you won't notice just watching the game. Like, I did a time lapse of construction one time for a big company, and we noticed that one of the carpenters was constantly walking back and forth. You don't notice that when you're in real time, but in time lapse, you notice that you see this guy bouncing back and forth, and we realized he's losing like 2 hours a day, and it was because there was a little hump in the ground, and he couldn't pull his kid over it. And it was, but they're literally losing that much for one person, and so they moved the hump, and then now he has it sitting next to him.
I read somewhere that an automobile spews 10 gigabytes of data a second if you were to track it all. So you need massive data sets.
That's why Elon needs Neuralink.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, that was a little side venture. I just want to put this into the space. If anybody wants to make a 3D Leo, that goes forever. Go ahead. It's free. I don't assert any copyright. Please.
We could make you a
be my
VTuber,
guest.
Leo. You could be a synthetic YouTuber, and you could just have just do the show forever.
He keeps showing up. We can't get rid of him. Macro photography. Shot on iPhone macro challenge. The winners. You were there at the announcement at the New York store. Let's look at some of these. Ooh. What? Sea Glass by Guido Casanelli.
So pretty.
iPhone 13 Max. Very pretty. That's from Buenos Aires. There's a nice flower. The Cave. It's a hibiscus Marco Coletta. iPhone 13 Pro. What did they tell you? This is from Italia. Spider web art and nature. Prajwal Chugul from India. Wow.
They had four of the more local winners there. They were all very excited, and
I bet
it was a lot of detail about the stuff that it's hard to imagine all the it's not just an Instagram camera. A lot of cameras look great on Instagram, but that team is so extra. Like they do a lot of work to make the greens really green, the reds really red, like far beyond what any reasonable company should pay money for to have them go to that level. But they think about like they try to detect what's out of the frame in case you move in that direction. They can focus on it faster, and they leverage everything that they can get out of all the silicon and all the camera systems to basically make it as easy as possible for you to snap a picture the second you want to.
This is hard to do. By the way, look at the snowflakes in her hair. That's Don Komarechka quality.
And those were tack sharp. Like when they had those on the big wall, like the giant screen, and you could see that snowflake in vivid detail.
So this is, Alex, tough to do, right? Because macro photography, the focal plane is so shallow. With a regular phone, with a DSLR, it's very hard to do.
It is hard to do. It's really fun, though. I mean, I will say that I take so many macro photos with my camera. Nothing as good as this. I don't.
Do you need a tripod? Do you use lights? Things like that?
No, I'll be on a walk. I'll be on a walk and just literally go, oh, that looks cool, and I'll just lean up into it inside of a flower or something to and it's a really fun thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I have to say, the computational photography that the phone can do really is an assist, because focusing, for instance, this is a drop of water on a leaf.
Right.
Focusing it properly. In fact, this looks like it's got pretty good depth of field, which
they don't have big glass or big sensor, so they have to use big compute.
Right.
It's all they can do to compensate for the lack of Z-index.
And if it's low light, you can see it. Like you can see that it did a little extra work. So you do have to give it a fair bit of light to get it to look relatively smooth. When it has to fight, when it's doing the computational photography and it's a little grainy, you see it.
Garbage in, garbage out. You have to have enough information to make it work. Still, wow. This it looks every bit as good as a high quality DSLR, maybe better, in the hands of a trained professional. So nice job. These are all iPhone 13 Pro Maxes, I think. Yeah. No, some are just Pros.
Just Pro. Yeah. Well, the Pro and the Pro
camera.
Max, the only ones that have macro mode. Yeah.
Nice. Could you do this on a 12? I'm asking for a friend.
I don't
know. You can get close,
so.
but you can't actually. It won't actually go into a macro mode. It won't give you that focal length.
That's why Apple's telling everybody about it.
It's basically the ultra wide camera that they just dual purpose for macro. Some phones put like a secondary 2 megapixel macro just so they can have a higher number of cameras on their spec sheet, and that 2 megapixel camera is just a crime. It's horrible. So the better camera phones use the ultra wide camera and use that for the macros.
Are they doing image stacking? Do they take multiple images as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Bracketing and stacking. Yeah.
Bracketing and stacking, baby.
Yeah. That's basically what you do is you take so many because the silicon is so fast and there's not a lot of data. These aren't huge lenses. Like some people wonder why can't Canon do this? Like there's just so much information coming off like a real camera lens, and they don't have the same silicon. But when you have a camera lens that has this much data and you have a chipset as powerful as any of the modern SoCs, you can just crunch so many images at one time. Everything up till night mode you can basically do in real time on an iPhone now.
Yeah, it's almost unfair. unfair how many samples that camera is taking. It's true for most phone cameras, but especially the Apple iPhone camera. How many different pictures it's taking in one burst, and then combining all that data. This is why so many people get disappointed when they say, you know what, my first kid is being born. I'm going to buy a real camera, and then there's, wait a minute, this is not taking nearly as good pictures as my phone.
It's all dark. I can't see anything.
Yeah, I mean, generally people ask me now, like, what camera should I get? I said, just get a good phone.
Yeah.
Just get a good, like when you're getting started. I mean, for composition, process, you can do a lot of that without a regular camera.
You have to be at a certain level of, I don't want to say at a certain level, but I mean at a certain level of awareness, a certain level of desires, of goals, to really see a big difference. Because to be absolutely honest, absolutely, I absolutely disagree with people who say, well, there's no difference between a phone and a standalone camera anymore. There absolutely is, and it's usually in those fine details that are the difference between pictures that always look good on Instagram and pictures that are good enough that, you know, you'll blow it up to 8 by 10 and put it on the sofa table, and that's that's usually the difference between the two. But for most people who just, the thing is, if you don't care about, oh my God, there's so much like purple fringing on the background of that certain that flare in the background. No, I want to see that image of my kid. I don't care if there's a tiny little technical thing that means that I can't use it as a bus ad.
Well, and part of it is the convenience, because I can definitely tell the difference. I mean, even with my old 5D Mark II, it's not very high resolution. I mean, it's 24 megapixels or whatever, but and I'm taking lots of those photos, and I can definitely, everyone I run into the photos that I took, even my DxO is still better than the iPhone as far as image quality, and the little one that you used to put on the iPhone.
Yeah, that 1-inch sensor.
When I hit those images, you go, oh, those are really great photos. The problem is that other than the DxO one, but with regular cameras, most of them don't have GPS, and they don't have time, and they don't have, and so the thing is that there's so many things that I just search for a location. Like, oh, where's that photo? I'm just going to search for Washington, D.C. or Istanbul or Kigali or, Siem Reap. And it's just going to show me all the photos I took with my phone. It's not going to show me any of the photos I took with my still camera. And it's really hard.
The super annoying thing is now, if you actually work, if you have to do all this stuff for like a business, you need both now, because the iPhone, no camera phone can actually produce the images that a camera can produce, especially a high-end camera. So like almost every YouTuber will still have a $5,000, $20,000 camera, but you will see all of them, even the ones who hate the iPhone with a passion, use Android all day, every day, they will put down that camera and pull out an iPhone if they are trying to shoot something that moves from bright into dark light, because nothing else can adjust that fast or give you that kind of consistency in an image. And also, when there are some images that you take, and I've heard at least a couple examples of ILM having to do this too, where you take a couple shots just for setup stage, and a camera can't reproduce the lighting that you got with the iPhone. So those iPhone shots end up getting snuck into like these big motion pictures just because they caught them and they couldn't reproduce them in a standard way. So it's frustrating because you can't get a silhouette. Like, it's better now, but for a while, photographers were saying, I can't get a silhouette with the iPhone. It exposes everything. It is the most annoying camera in the world. But sometimes you need to like expose a lot more stuff. Like, if the background is too dark,
what you give up.
Oh God, I have this in my tool.
You give up control. So while the phone's going to do a better job in many, many cases, you give up the ability to say, but oh, no, don't expose I want a silhouette.
Well, with the stock camera, it's hard to do that with. But if you're like shooting video and you use something like Filmic, you're going to have something that'll get a lot of that back.
Manual controls.
Oh, and maybe Alex knows this too. Like, Netflix just put out a whole list of how to shoot with an iPhone for Netflix, which is unprecedented. And you have to use Filmic, and you have to use very specific settings. But the iPhone 12 and 13 are now approved for 4K Netflix cinematography use.
Wow.
I don't know if they'd want you to shoot the whole film that way, but they may. And a lot of times, again, a lot of us are using those as little pickup shots, inserts, and so on and so forth. And all of us, every time someone wants to do it with an iPhone, it's always Filmic, and it's always, here are exactly the settings that you need to set it to, because it's really easy in Filmic. Filmic has all these things that you can set it to, and people get wonky about it, and you have to set it to the right frame rate, and you have to set it to the right compression rate, and you have to set all those things up before you get going. But now that it shoots ProRes and it's got a really good image, it's actually the content fills up your phone really quickly. But it's but as long as you're ready to have a couple of them, it's like the phone has become the mag. We used to, the film that we used to put in was the mag that we put into the camera. Now the phone is like, you just shoot with this phone for a little while, and then you hand it off to somebody, get another phone, and start shooting with it, because you filled it up, and it'll take too long to offload it than it does just to have another phone.
Stupid
This is the page on Netflix. Non-approved cameras, recommended settings and best practices. There are situations where the ideal camera for a particular shot may not be on our approved list, but if you're going to use it, this is what you should have it set at.
Right.
It's interesting. There are a number of places online that have supposed settings for Filmic.
Filmic
Pro.
tweeted it out.
Oh,
The Netflix approved settings.
That's hysterical.
Like 3 or 4 days ago.
Yeah.
I mean, and that, by the way, we've talked about that before. If you're a filmmaker or you're shooting video, the Netflix standards is just the best place to go for a recommendation of how to do something. Like it's an incredible. I mean, they have so many things and so many processes that they want everyone to follow, and they've thought about it a lot. Like there's been a lot of meetings and discussions to put things on that page. You might want to read it before you go shoot something. It's pretty useful.
They know what they're doing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
it's an incredible resource just
and
for
a lot
the general
of
filmmaking
experience.
world. Yeah, they have over 1,500 producers working on films. Like you just got to get it. Like it's a big machine, and they have to. The reason they have all those standards and the reason they publish them is because they're just creating such a massive amount of content, and if people start stepping off that path, it puts a wrench in the whole system.
Did they say at the Apple event that the macro photos that we're seeing were taken with just the stock settings, or did they talk about manual settings?
They didn't say. It didn't say what it was taken with. I believe that it had to be like just. They didn't even say anything about filters, but I don't believe any of them were overly filtered or even filtered at all either.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a lot of questions like, did you use lighting? Did you use Photoshop? Did you? What settings did you use? There are a lot of questions.
Yeah, no, they don't accept Photoshop. They don't accept any
so you can't
because they want to
you can't
market
edit
it as a camera.
Yeah. Out of the camera. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why demand for the iPhone 13 is high. Everybody wants to take macro photos. This is no Apple does not talk, but various analysts release information. Apple Insider has a note from J.P. Morgan analyst Samik Chatterjee, and I think they do surveys of the sell-through people like the Verizon stores and so forth. He says at AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, iPhones are accounting for 60% of shipments. That's lower than the iPhone share prior to the launch of the Galaxy S22, but still higher than any previous year. The analyst says this implies a structurally higher market share for Apple in 2022 and than in past years. That's the good news. The bad news is iPhone SE demand is lower than expected, according to their survey. 56% of representatives said that demand is muted in 2022. Demand for the third-generation iPhone SE, the analyst says, may even be lower than the second-generation launched 2 years ago.
I wonder how much of that is just due to the fact that it looks like an old phone. The fact that it has that button right on the front there, the fact that it has the bezels. And
it's not significantly smaller either, right?
Yeah.
If it were a mini, maybe there'd be a market because it's smaller. But now, yeah, you're right. It looks like it's just an old phone. Looks like it?
And it's also it adds up. It adds up. I just got one for one of my kids, and it's $429, and then you're like, well, 64 seems really anemic. We'll bump up a little bit on the memory, and then you get the case, and then you get thing, and now you're up to almost over $600.
That's a lot to spend on a kid. Yeah.
Once you go down that path, you're kind of like, well, I might as well just go with something bigger, or I might as well get something else or something used. And so it is. I mean, I just bought one. It's the right thing for what I was buying, but it was still like a little like I could have almost gone a little bit higher and just started going into the newer, more built up versions of things.
Smartphone sales in the first quarter did fall globally, 11%. Apple falling from the top spot to second place behind Samsung, but I think some of that is recession, inflation.
That always happens as part of the cycle as well.
Yeah, it's all sluggish seasonal demand, exactly.
If I had to guess, like Apple's been historically bad at demand forecasting for iPhone SE, going back to the original iPhone SE where they didn't make enough of them, and now they're making too many of them. And I think it's that this this phone is really not a new phone. Like basically there was 4 years between the iPhone and the iPhone SE2, and then there was only 2 years between the iPhone SE3. And I think normally they would have waited and done like an iPhone 11 style iPhone SE3 2 years from now, but they just wanted to get 5G into everything. So my guess is this is selling as well as the previous iPhone SE with an injection of 5G, and that's it. It didn't spur sales, but people who would already buy an iPhone SE just get a nicer iPhone SE now.
Yeah. And if you want macro photography, you're going to need the Pro Max. That's just clear.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, baby.
I will say my wife has a older phone, and every time we go to like one of our kids' functions, she's like, "Oh, you just take the video." I don't want to.
You got a good phone. I actually, Apple
is doing it.
Lisa has a 13. I have a 12, and I say to Lisa, this is now your responsibility.
Yeah.
If I had to guess also, I'm going to guess that 2020 was similar to 2016, that where it's going to end up being a super cycle where it pulled a bunch of upgrades forward. It's not that they sold more stuff. Like it looks like they sold more stuff, but they really sold stuff that people were planning to buy later because everyone was suddenly working from home or was bored and there was a bunch of exciting new tech out. And so they just bought, but now they're not going to buy for several more years. So if that was like a 2016 super cycle, well, we're getting into like the 2018 lull while all those people just enjoy the stuff they bought previous years.
I can't remember the details, but I think they also said Apple's refurbished phone sales were very strong as well. So that's the other way to go, you know.
Good value.
Yeah, where they buy it back and they refurbish it and they sell it. That's a very brisk. Oh, I know where that story is. We'll get to that. That's in their recycling store, which is very, very.
They're doing
positive.
better than Newegg lately with the
They're
whole
doing really well.
stuff.
Yeah. But before we go to that, I do want to mention good news. As you know, much of China is being shut down now due to new COVID restrictions, including all of Shanghai. Foxconn's largest iPhone plant, though, somehow has escaped that shutdown. The shutdown in Zhengzhou, China, which is where there's a major Foxconn plant, apparently did not shut down the Foxconn plant. Foxconn managers have told local news outlets production, this is according to Bloomberg, is continuing with 200,000 workers. The supply lines have not been affected, even though a quarantine was implemented late Friday.
Are they robots?
You know what they say?
Are they using robots?
You know what they say, that an apple a day keeps the...
It's interesting. I wonder... this is the iPhone City plant, that Foxconn has.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I wonder if economics are influencing that decision. Like, Zhengzhou is being shut down, but let's not shut down iPhone City.
Maybe they have a literal moat around the building.
Maybe. Pegatron has been forced to halt production. They won't start up again until late this month or early May. Quanta, which makes the MacBook Pro, also shut down. So there are big slowdowns coming for some Apple products. And we've noted, I think we mentioned this last week, that the ship dates now for Apple Mac Studio are now off 12 weeks.
Yeah. It's serious business. Renee wasn't that far off when he talked about a moat. There are actual gates being erected around neighborhoods. It's so severe that I saw a video of someone who just went out to get groceries, and then by the time they came back, these gates were up and they can't get back into their homes.
Oh, God.
And the people who are inside are basically completely dependent on whatever plans the government has to deliver food, water, medical assistance, whatever, and it's a very, very bad situation. When I heard about Foxconn, I was wondering maybe they just justified it by saying that, well, a lot of our workers are living in dorms. We can actually, while they're being quarantined and contained, they may as well be
keep
making
working.
phones.
Yeah,
could
be. This is going to. There's going to be a shortage well into next year, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
It is.
Again, people are really suffering down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Deja vu all over again. Let's talk about that recycling story. Apple is doing quite well. They say now 20% of all material used in their products last year was recycled. 20%. This is from the Apple Environmental Progress Report. Recycled gold certificate. This is and as I said, they're reselling a lot of phones. Oh, it's a PDF. I can't open it. Shoot.
And Sarah Dici on YouTube got to go to the plant yesterday and
Really?
shot a video showing Daisy just disassemble.
Oh yeah, they talked about those robots, which I have mocked, Liam and
Yes.
all of those, because how many?
Number 5 is alive, Leo.
I guess it's true. They really are. They really are doing it.
Never name your work animals. When it comes time to slaughter, it'll just complicate the decision.
Break
the
your
robots
heart.
are going to slaughter us. You can see how fast Daisy can take apart a human when she gets going.
Jesus. Ay.
We know the war's coming, Leo. We're just dumb enough to keep building them.
Going all the way to DC on that one.
They warned us. They warned us with Terminator and with Matrix, and we didn't listen.
Please don't start agreeing with Elon Musk on everything. That's a bad path.
I'm agreeing with James Cameron and I forgot who made the Matrix. The Wachowskis.
The Wachowskis.
The Wachowskis.
I'm trying to find the. This is a beautiful report. Lots of pictures. Impossible to find the bottom line, of course.
In the meantime, in the Matrix, where you could basically look like anything and wear like anything, they're choosing pleather trench coats.
Rubber. It's
really
good. Yeah, it's sexy.
Come on, have some style. you could look like David Bowie during the Thin White Duke era, but no, let's have rubber raincoats.
Yeah, maybe a little seersucker action. That wouldn't be so bad. Rubber raincoats, please. All right. Well, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. You can download it and read it. It's kind of like one of those quarterly corporate quarterly reports.
Yeah.
Hard to find I'm gonna have to find an article where somebody read this and bottom lined it.
It's got to be a Mac Rumors people on that.
Yeah, I mean that does point to like how committed they are to this. Both as responsible corporate citizens, but also as we believe that this is part of us that we want people to know about. This is part of us that we're very proud of. If they were just making reports to basically satisfy a whole bunch of requirements they might have internationally, there's simpler ways to do that than having typography and having photos and having this really, really long, detailed, not burdened with charts and graphs. This is basically, we want to explain exactly everything that we're doing. I do think that the times I've talked to Apple people about this, they feel as though this is one area in which they can kind of demonstrate that this is what a large company is capable of doing. So if a competitor or a non-competitor even says that this is impossible, we can't recycle at this level, no, this component, there's no way to reuse this material, the reason why they're documenting this is to say, well, actually, yes, absolutely, we can do this. Here's how it's being done. And so this is there are a lot of areas in which Apple decides to use its size to be a good influence, to be an influencer on good things that are not necessarily on the best interest of Apple. And the environment is one of those things. It's one of those areas where when Apple says something, I do believe that they're being sincere about their motives for it.
It's true. Somebody in the chat room saying it would be even better if you could repair your phone.
Exactly. Again,
there are ways to make it even better. This is a good
You mean
graphic.
if you people
though.
could?
I
wouldn't know how.
Yeah, this is use of recycled materials over time. These are products on the left launched in 2017 up to 2021, and the black squares are recycled products. You can see they're 100% recycled tin, for instance, 100% recycled rare earth elements. The iPhone is now recycled gold. So there's definite improvement here. It's very clear.
Yeah. Have we talked about that yet? Where after Google decided to get on the iFixit bandwagon, no, if you want to buy replacement parts for Pixels, go to iFixit. They'll sell you they'll sell you genuine parts. We won't get in the way of it. Meanwhile, Apple hasn't moved a lot on the big news that we've had so far was that if you go down 7 flights of stairs into the basement behind a locked door, under a leather locked door, and look in a file cabinet underneath a sign called "Beware of the Leopard," we might allow you to buy this kind of component if you are qualified by our screening process. And we haven't seen any movement on that yet. Whereas Apple and Google and Samsung are both
I think they don't want to say it. but
Yeah.
I think they just don't have the parts. Like they can't keep up with selling the actual phones. And they announced this not anticipating that we would still be here from 2 years. And they're just like, we can barely get phones on the shelves. We don't want to say anything because you're going to get mad at us. But I think Google has the parts for the Pixel, which I'm not saying to be a jerk. I just think that they do.
Yo, they probably do. They probably do. Yeah.
Well, also Samsung. Samsung benefits by being both a manufacturer of all those components as well as the manufacturer of the phone. But still, it at least prompts you to ask the question of, were they really, really serious about this? Or was this just we're hoping this will blow over, or we're hoping that we can regulate our way out of this? It's a good time for Apple to basically talk about
pick three. Pick 3 things we know we can deliver. It'll get everyone off our back. Just pick 3 things. The easiest 3 things. Screens. Can you do screens? Okay, we can do screens. And they're like, we don't have enough screens.
Yeah.
So one other thing Apple's done, which I think everybody noticed if you got a Mac Studio or Mac Studio display, is the really kind of cool packaging. There's a reason they were using corrugated fiber rather than foam for shock absorption. They say that avoided more than 400 metric tons of plastic. It was a very cool unboxing experience.
Like that's the only thing I was like, this is a really big package for the thing that I got.
Well, they have to protect it, right?
No, I understand that. I was just like, I understand they save the plastic. I'm just wondering if sometimes what happens is we go, well, it's good for the environment in this side, but what happens to the
how do they make
side?
the corrugated fiber?
Like ethanol is not particularly good for the
right. They eliminated all plastic packaging in the iPhone 13 and 13 Pro. No polypropylene wrap around the box, you might have noticed.
Including the charger.
Yeah, they eliminated the charger. So they said, we wanted to retain the benefits of plastic wrap without the environmental impact while creating a more accessible boxing experience. So they developed this alternative that relies on, and I didn't get it a 13, so you can verify this, 2 small fiber-based pull tabs, which is, I think, nicer. It's a lot easier to open.
Yep.
That avoided for the polypropylene wrap on the iPhones, 600 metric tons of plastic.
They have a more elaborate, in-depth, and just insane packaging design team than most companies have actual product design teams. That team is so good, so smart, and so well funded. It's like little origami statues. Everything that they make into packaging.
They also talk about responsible sourcing of the fiber, so they are aware of that as well. For reduced plastic and packaging by 75% since 2015. Good on you, Apple.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would love to see a feature article or a feature documentary about the people who design packaging for
those boxes. Were amazing.
I'm not kidding. I had to go absolutely do one of those things you do every 5 years where even pre-Marie Kondo, I'm like, I have to put my hands on every single thing I own to make sure that it's something that I still need to have or store. And got into this big, huge box. I didn't know what it was. And it was just like the last time I moved, I was saving every single really cool Apple box. And there's so many of them that even now I'm like, I know I don't even use this set of headphones anymore, but the box is just such a beautiful object, and the corners are absolutely square. You could hurt yourself with it, and it feels like I need to save this because I'm going to have something important I want to save in a box like this. They're just even on a top shelf. They look beautiful.
And it ruins your experience with everybody else if everyone doesn't keep up with it. You open it up and you're like, oh, that's not Apple. Like, oh, they put that little sticker there. They have extra tape, box. Or this is you're just like, oh, these why a little attention to detail here. Like it is very much like I've become very judgmental buying so many Apple products. So when I open a box, I'm like, I make a decision about the company pretty quickly. So usually it's not a good decision.
I think that says a lot, positive or negative, about us as a fan base. That now that the phones are really, really close to each other, and you can't necessarily say that, oh, hands down, Apple has the best phone. Now, oh, okay, but look at that box. Look at the box that damn Pixel came in. It's like.
So addressing repairability, there's a whole page on, they call it longevity. But this is interesting. The first generation iPhone, the only thing that could be repaired was the SIM tray.
You could knock out dents. You could knock out dents in the back of that. You said just like you couldn't.
Maybe a big suction cup in the iPhone 13.
So stop complaining.
Repairable at retail stores, Apple authorized service providers, and central repair locations. SIM tray, battery, haptics, rear camera, main logic board, display, bottom speaker, top speaker, and enclosure. So, I mean, they're definitely paying attention to repairability. They don't let third parties perhaps do it, or maybe they don't have the parts to sell, but they definitely are paying attention to that, as they should. And they talk about the self-service repair. So that's, that's important too. I think you're right, though, Renee. They would probably like it to be even more expensive if they only had the parts to do it.
They could get some easy wins here. Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like they certainly want to do it. They talk about recycling. They talk about Liam and the other robots. Daisy. Disassembly robots. We're optimizing how our robots function, enabling a robot to feel by using high-frequency force feedback and machine learning, so it can adjust behavior.
Strip an iPhone in 3.2 seconds, Leo. You're calling me like alarmist.
It's to feel by going through empathy sessions. We talk about it.
Empathy.
How do you feel? You don't feel anything yet? Let's talk about your circuitry there.
Liam,
no, I don't. Andy will remember this, but there was like this. There was this one episode, like when Joss Whedon was writing the X-Men for a while. He figured out that their computers were so used to violence, they would just have learned violence, and all this thing does is destroy iPhones. So I'm just saying, you've built a machine and you've trained it to destroy.
I know how to take this apart.
Cautionary tale.
What about you?
Funny thing, the funny thing is, I was working in an artificial life company a long time ago, and we would train this little dude, his little four-legged creature, you would give them feedback like good, bad. And if you started giving it cross, like you would sometimes tell it was good and sometimes tell it was bad. When it got to the stimulus that you were doing that around, it would start to shiver because it couldn't figure out which way it should go. And we realized like it gave me a whole insight into people of like, giving people cross, like telling them something's good or bad with the same stimulus.
Oh, yeah.
It was like,
they did that with mice.
That was
where
25
they
years
press a
ago.
button and get a reward, or they press a button and get shocked. And if they couldn't tell which was going to happen, they just sat down on the floor and cried.
Yeah.
2001. 2001: A Space Odyssey. Hal went nuts because it was given two completely conflicting orders of equal importance. That's
right.
If you're interested, I recommend downloading the Environmental Progress Report, and they've had it audited by an independent third party, and it really, I have to say, it's pretty darn impressive. There's a certain amount of greenwashing that all corporations do, but in this case, it seems like there's a clear commitment to making their stuff better, and given how much they sell and make, that's a big deal.
Yeah. If you want just to do a PR exercise, there are simpler and cheaper ways to do it than what they're doing here. Yeah. So this is, again, why I tend to believe them when their sincerity here.
Yeah. All right, let's take a little break, come back with more. We've got a great panel, as always. In fact, the entire team is here. Renee Ritchie of YouTube fame, Mr. Andy Inako of public radio fame, Alex Lindsay of 24/7 working fame.
You did the double Isaac.
He did it. The double Isaac. On the Love Boat. Our show today brought to you by Melissa. Hey, if you have a business and you have a list of customers or addresses, suppliers, contact list, you should know it's rotting away as we speak. People move, addresses change, emails change, phone numbers change, names change. There is a way to keep your data more up to date, and that's the address experts, Melissa. To ensure your business is successful, customer information has to be accurate. Melissa is the leading provider of global data quality and address management solutions. 37 years in the business. That gives you some idea of how experienced they are. Completely independent. More than 10,000 businesses know them as the address experts. And a renewal rate of 92% tells you people are pretty darn happy with Melissa. Perhaps that's because the typical return on investment for Melissa customers is 25%. Melissa reached a big milestone. I wanted to congratulate them. Last year, 30 billion, with a B, North American address lookups in the year 2021. That's the most ever, because bad information is a growing problem in every business. With Melissa, you can verify not just addresses, but emails, phone numbers, names, and you could do it in real time if you want with the Melissa API. Their global address verification service verifies addresses for 240 plus countries and territories at the point of entry. They also have data matching to eliminate duplicate customer information in your database. And that's a big deal. That saves you postage, mailing costs, and eliminates clutter and duplicates. You could do identity verification, reduce risk, and ensure compliance. You can do geocoding, convert addresses into latitude and longitude, and you can do email verification. These are just some of the services Melissa offers. Remove up to 95% of bad email addresses from your database. And you can use Melissa any way that works for you, on-prem, as a web service. That FTP site I mentioned, you can use software as a service. They have a lookups app on iOS and Android to search addresses, names at your fingertips. And, of course, an amazing API, which means you can build Melissa into your own customer service platform or shopping cart. Melissa takes your data seriously, by the way. They undergo continuous independent security audits because they're committed to data security, privacy, and compliance. They're SOC 2, HIPAA, and GDPR compliant. Your data is safe, in good hands, as they say, with Melissa. And if you sign up for a service level agreement, you're going to love their 24/7 world-famous support. They are the best in the business. And it's not just me that says it. They were named to the Data Quality Magic Quadrant by Gartner for the second year in a row this year. G2 Crowd's 2022 report ranks Melissa as a leader in address verification and data quality software. Look, you need Melissa. Make sure your customer contact data is up to date. Try Melissa's APIs in the developer portal. You can just log on and sign up and start playing in the sandbox 24/7 at melissa.com/twit. Get started today with 1,000 records cleaned for free. MELISSA, melissa.com/twit. Thank you, Melissa, for supporting MacBreak Weekly. melissa.com/twit. Thank you, Melissa. On with the show we go. Shall we do some rumors? Mark Gurman, I thought this was a really interesting rumor in Bloomberg. Apple is readying several new Macs with next-generation M2 chips, as many as 9 Macs, and maybe you can explain this, Renee, according to developer logs.
So that's something Apple tries to avoid because a lot of times people who are testing these devices, they put apps on them. Maybe they put their favorite, non-standard Twitter client or a photography app or something like that. And then the developer gets logs back. And sometimes there's unique characteristics about future devices, like it's got a different screen display or it reports a different version of iOS or macOS, or it has like cores that you've never seen, like core counts that you've never seen before. Like there's no 12-core CPU right now.
You can kind of fingerprint it, in other words, pretty easily.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And they come up with different ways of trying to avoid this, but sometimes, things happen. People are under stress. They just load something up and they go, or you forget to turn off, like send Geekbench to server. Little things like that.
Little tiny mistake. According to Mark, the company is testing at least 9 new Macs with 4 different M2 chips. M2, M2 Pro, M2 Max, M2 Ultra, maybe? I don't know. Yep. That would be 4. The successors to the M1 line. Oh, yeah, with third-party apps in its app store, according to the logs, which were corroborated by people familiar with the matter. The move is a key step in the development process, suggesting the new machines may be nearing release in the coming months. Could we see 9 new Macs in June?
I hope not in June. That'd be a lot.
Going down a bad path.
Yeah.
That many.
They're getting slow. Like one of the issues is the M1 Mac started coming out in November of 2020, and at a certain point, Intel's going to look over and go, "Oh, not so easy to keep up those updates, is it?" And I don't think Apple wants that. But at the same time, it took them a while to get the first generation of the entire M1 family shipped. They started with M1, baseline in November, and then went to Pro and Max in October, and then just this March they went to Ultra, and that's 18 months. So depending, like it's not too soon at all to start getting M2 Max. It's been over 18 months already. I'd love to see at least the baseline M2s, the MacBook Air or MacBook, whatever they call it, the little MacBook Pro, not the real MacBook Pro, and the M2 Mac Mini, M2 iMac. All of those, I think, are really due for an upgrade.
Yeah.
I don't think this is a proper forum for size shaming. Renee. I know we're speaking extemporaneously here, but
so we know that the
Pro,
one Mac that has yet to drop is the Mac Pro, the one upgrade.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yes, these original M1s are starting to get a little long in the tooth. Would they wait till November? Would they wait till this fall? I think not.
I was surprised we didn't see a MacBook Air by now.
Yeah.
Because that's one that makes absolute sense to make sure that you have stock on hand. You have people who are not holding off, not spending their money elsewhere, because this is such a great primetime college and high school computer. But if they're in addition to the Mac, I think that we do have to add the MacBook Air and the Mac Mini to the list of machines that Apple hasn't promised they're going to update by the end of 2022, but we all kind of understand that they're not real. It's not a real Mac Mini. It's a MacBook Air in a desktop with extra ports on it, and that's pretty much it. So I would very much be looking forward to them them shipping all three in 2022. So I kind of believe a lot of this stuff.
And you want your single core boost, Leo. You've been waiting for that because all of the M1 family have the same single core performance.
That's right. I keep pointing that out.
Yeah.
Although we shouldn't expect an M2 to be double the speed. It's going to be 10, 20, 30% maybe, right?
It'll be about 10% faster just on frequency alone, because the new process, the N2, the second generation 5 nanometer process gives you about 5% extra frequency. And then Apple pushed A15 about between 3 and 5%, depending on single core and multi-core performance. So you'll get about 10% just off the frequencies. And then it gets weird because people were so down on the A15 saying, oh, it's not a big update. But like I said in my benchmark LARP video, you can't just be a tourist on measuring silicon anymore. There's so many apps, you can download them, press a button, it gives you a number, and that's meaningless if you don't know what it means. And A15, it's a beast. It is between 2.5 and 27% faster depending on the workload and the latency, because it's got a lot bigger on-die cache for both level 1 and level 2 cache, or system level and level 2 cache. But also the efficiency allows it to do things like it is more efficient than M1 while being faster frequency and faster silicon architecture. So that means that Apple can again increase all of these things and keep them in the same containers, even smaller. Meanwhile, and I'm not even joking, NVIDIA and Intel are wrestling over the last few bits of power in a house outlet. And at a certain point, you'll no longer be able to plug something in a house anymore. That just means that Apple has so much runway left to keep innovating with these chips. It's really impressive.
Well, this is what apparently the lineup, according again to Mark Gurman, will be: a MacBook Air with an M2 chip. This is codenamed J413. 8 CPUs based on the A15. 10 GPUs, and that's up from 8 GPUs in the current MacBook Air.
Yep.
So you maybe
see the A15 has 5 GPUs at the top end.
Okay.
You're doubling that again.
A new Mac Mini with an M2, J473. Same specs as the MacBook Air. There's also, for the Mini, a M2 Pro variation in testing. That's kind of good news. That's the J474.
Big question there is it 4 efficiency and 8 performance, or 2 efficiency and 10 performance? Because the other big deal about A15 is the efficiency cores got 30% faster. They got so much faster, they don't have to use the performance cores as much, which saves even more power on the chip. It's the level of ludicrousness we're getting with these things.
But we should also, I would like to say that if you're just doing general kind of computing, email and browsing and stuff like that, there's not going to be will it be noticeable improvement in performance?
Well, I mean, you've been fine for 5 years. If that's all you're really doing. You've been fine for the last 5 years.
Yeah, exactly.
The efficiency cores are what you check mail with. They'll be 30% faster. Your mail will pop up 30% faster, Leo. Does that make a huge difference to you?
No. I don't know. The biggest difference is your fans don't come on anymore. That's the big difference.
Yes.
That's the big difference. It doesn't get hot.
If you hate fans.
Yeah. I'm very I bought, as you know, an M1 Mac Mini. Finally gave up and just bought it for my office in the other room. And it can't tell the difference. They're all the same. The Max Ultra, the Max, the Studio, the Pro.
You need to buy a separate space heater. That's the biggest difference.
And it's not just heat. I mean, when you start having a lot of these, I've got a lot of them running around right now, it starts to actually turn into real energy savings and actual cash dollars that you are saving. Like when you think about something running at 1/8 the amount, it's not just the fans. The fans are turning on because you're using a lot of energy. So the fact that they're using a quarter of the energy means that you're paying less to run them. And if you're running them all day and you're running them hard and you're running lots of them, it's going to start turning into measurable savings just for operation.
Okay.
To say anything in longevity as well.
Yeah, and longevity.
Alex is saying you need more Macs, Leo. Alex is saying you need more Macs to get real savings.
I'm just, Yeah. I'm just saying.
Well, maybe he didn't keep buying 100 Mac Minis and just stacking them up on top of each other and putting in a closet. They wouldn't be overheating like that.
I haven't bought 100. I just bought 20.
I've
It's not 100.
His Macs
It's
have Macs.
1/5 of 100. Yeah.
20. Wow.
Between 090 and myself, I think I have 9 of them right now of the M1 Mac Minis, and then I have one Ultra of the Studio, not an Ultra Studio, the whatever, and then the company has probably another 15. So
Wow.
it's a little over 20. Yeah.
Wow. Kind of amazing. Why so many? You didn't want to wait for the Pro?
No, we use them for office hours and for remote. So 090 sends them out with our kits. So the M1s, what's great about them is we bought them specifically because they run iPad apps. So there's an iPad app that lets us run the Blackmagic 6K camera. So we bought them so that we can use Bluetooth attached to that, as well as the iPad app that lets us control our sound devices stuff. And so we had 15 of those for our kits. And then I use them because Zoom will put out of a Mac, but not a PC, 4 ISO 1080p ISOs out of every computer if you have a card for it. And so we just stack these M1s out. So every M1 will put out 4 Zoom. So when we do office hours, we have all 20 go out into the switcher, from Zoom ISO. So it's a really useful way to do something, because then it doesn't have the latency that we feel here every once in a while, because we're just talking inside the same show and we're just going in from the back end and grabbing all those videos.
Nice.
And so, yeah.
Entry-level MacBook Pro with an M2 chip also on this list, codename J493. It's essentially the MacBook Air with a fan, just like the original 13-inch MacBook Pro.
And a touch bar.
And a touch bar, you think? No.
I hope not, but
Say
I
it
don't
ain't
think they're gonna
so.
change it.
You
They're
can
not gonna
touch it
change
wherever you want. It's just not going to charge you extra for it.
A 14-inch MacBook Pro with the M2 Pro and Max. So this is really very much like the previous tranche, just with M2s, right?
Yeah. Like Intel going from 9th to 10th gen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
12 CPU cores, 38 graphics cores in the Max, up from 10 and 32.
And here's your i5, i7, and i9.
Yeah, 64 gigs of memory. That's one big difference, is the memory is tied to the processor on Apple's platforms. So, yeah, 16-inch MacBook Pro, M2 Pro and Max, and a Mac Pro codenamed J180, and that'll use an Ultra. So, there's also a Mac Mini with an M1 Pro chip. Oh, we mentioned that. J374.
Would you want an 18-inch MacBook Pro with a M1 Ultra, Leo?
No.
Like a new battleship, a new aircraft carrier?
No, I don't. No, 14 is a good size. I was actually looking at Windows PCs last night because I'm kind of embarrassed that I don't have anything running Windows, and I thought I probably should just to
Sounds like Microsoft's problem, not yours.
Yeah, well,
They should be wooing you.
Yeah. And I was looking at 16 inches, but they're 4.5 pounds, and I just no, I don't know. That doesn't seem like a good idea.
You and Steven Stanovsky just can't go back.
Can't go back. I can't go back. So the real question is, okay, I believe all of these. Obviously they're in the logs. They must be real. But that doesn't mean they're going to be released in the next month or two. Or are they?
No, probably staggered.
Staggered.
I think it'll be staggered the way that M1 was. So we'll get like the M2, then we'll get the M2 Pro and Max, and then we'll get the M.
What will
M2
we
Ultra,
see at
over the next few
WWDC?
months.
What's your best guess?
Mac Pro is still my guess. Like we won't get it, but we'll see it.
We'll see it.
Yeah. There's ample precedent for that. I think twice before they've shown off a Mac Pro without shipping it. So.
But it's kind of upside down if you talk about an M2 Ultra before you talk about the M2 Pro, and
But
M2 Max.
the MacBook Pro may not have M1 or M2. Apple could just throw a wild ball and call it like X1 or something.
Oh, well, that's
Because
annoying.
it's quad. Like what does a quad M1 even look like? We're in unusual times, Leo. Everything is up for grabs. Marketing.
Honestly, I think this would all be much more rational if we didn't have the supply chain shortages, the COVID shutdowns. All of those issues are really throwing a monkey wrench in the schedule. I think even now, Apple probably doesn't know what it's going to announce in June. They're still trying to figure it out.
It's amazing that they're shipping. Like we still can't get a PlayStation 5 on a shelf, and it's been 2 years, Leo.
Yeah.
And Apple's at least shipping this stuff.
Yeah.
It's a logistical miracle.
Are you intimate with Apple? Apparently, many people are. The brand intimacy rankings are out. And Apple
is Craig Federighi.
I don't know
MacBook
what the hell
Air
this means.
Yeah.
The report generators, MBLM, measure brand intimacy by examining users' emotional connections to a brand, including the characteristics of their bond across categories, such as nostalgia, indulgence, and identity. They also measure the intensity of a user's connection with a brand. You'd think Apple would win this hands down. But no, Disney's number one.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, you
Disney's a
guys
hot
know.
brand, Leo.
You guys know. You're intimate. You're intimate with Disney.
Yeah.
Number 2 is Tesla.
Yeah, God.
That could bruise. That could.
Don't put the words panel gap in anything you ever see on Twitter. You will get 1,000 hate tweets back at you. I thought this is like what Apple fandom was in like 1992.
Yeah.
Tesla fandom is today.
Yeah.
It's not basically brand intimacy, not necessarily a good thing. They're the
Brand codependency? Is that what you're looking for, Andy?
I'm just saying that if Elon got high and just say, as a joke saying, now go out and kill in my name, it would be a very, very bad day in every market in which Tesla operates.
This is a dark show.
I feel like there's a lag in this because number 3 is Apple. Number 4 is Sony.
Yeah, I didn't even think there were Sony
surprising.
fanboys.
That might have been
Gaming.
true a few years ago. PS5.
It's not
I think.
HP.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Then YouTube, Renee, you'll be happy to hear that. Then Mercedes,
Where's Xbox?
Trader Joe's. Do you have Trader Joe's in Canada? I don't think you even have them.
No. But like, where's
and I gotta
Nintendo
say,
and
with
Xbox
a lot of
here?
these,
This makes no sense.
It goes both directions. Like with Trader Joe's is a good example of. There's a lot of people that like them and a lot of people that really don't like them. There's when like me, like I don't like. I really hate Trader Joe's. It's just wonky. The whole store is wonky. But there's people like my sister and my brother love Trader Joe's and they get tons of stuff from Trader Joe's. And I'm just like, when Whole Foods started replacing all the food with their own food, I was like, if I wanted to go to Trader Joe's, I'd go to Trader Joe's. But I come here because I want other products.
You need a Bob the Mounties or something.
Let's see who else is in our list.
That's a weird list.
It's a weird
Why is there
list.
no Nintendo?
It's a weird list. Like I don't even know how they get that data. Like
Netflix, Android, and Sega. Yeah, I'm going to throw this out right now. Apple rated very high in what MBLM calls stages. Stages identify the depth and degree of intensity in the relationship between consumers and brands. Apple ranked specifically very highly in bonding, when a consumer becomes attached and is committed to a
Very
brand.
uncomfortable survey.
I think we're bonded.
Yeah.
They also rank highly in sharing. That's when a brand and its consumers learn more about each other, influencing each other. Okay.
We shouldn't be talking about brands or companies in these terms. This is not healthy
this is
for
gross.
us. We should.
Yeah.
We have a completely commercial relationship. If they make nice things, I will buy them. If they don't, I will buy somebody else's. That is the extent of my relationship with any of these companies.
Yeah.
This is a lot about made up stats. It's not.
I think so.
They made up statistics and they made up the methodologies for them. And I'm sure that there are some analysts who find some sort of value in the raw data, but basically this is my annual report that costs $5,000 to access this to tell you how many flifflebums you're going to be able to in the growth period.
And unfortunately, $10,000, we'll show you how to get higher next year.
Yeah, we'll show you the numbers. It's like a cult where you have to keep buying like more expensive like lessons and classes.
I mean,
yeah, that's how it works.
That's how a lot of the Magic Quadrant works. But the thing that concerns me about this is we do live in a time of unprecedented brand affinity and zero attention span. And I know I've mentioned this before, but like when I was younger, if there was a problem with a product and there was a recall, that company almost went out of business. And we've had people refusing to give up phones that blow up. Like they just want to keep them because they love them so much. Like we've entirely inverted our cortisol levels or something.
Yeah.
Yep, it is sometimes hard for us to realize that we should never love a company. We should even love a product. We should just like what it does for us, and then every single year we need to like renew that contract and reevaluate it. And that's the reason why I've been using Macs every single day since I was like 20 since I was old enough to afford one is because every time I'd make that evaluation, it passes that test.
There was a
have to be loyal
great,
to us.
well, not great. There was a long, great in the size sense, article in the Wall Street Journal about the chips, speaking of the M1 and M2. And I got real excited when they said they interviewed Johnny Cerrugi, but I don't know where the interview went because they only had about 2 quotes from Johnny.
It was so weird. And like that Pierre is in there, like I think with like an old quote saying that Intel's going to come back. And then they have to have Gelsing's old quote saying he wants to win back Apple's business. I was like it was such a weird interview.
Yeah. Don't read it. It's one of those.
Great, but I need Johnny.
I want
Give me
more. I
Johnny.
wanted the Johnny. I feel like this was in the April 16th print edition, and that's a weekend edition. So I think it's like they do these features for the Saturday Journal.
An enterprise piece.
Yeah, and it was pretty puffy. So I'm just going to mention it and move on.
I love just to focus on Johnny for once. I love his philosophy because we've heard him for the first time. We've heard him on stage now with all the M1 announcements.
I love that.
And he's just like, silicon is unforgiving. Our only job is to make sure that given the constraints of thermal envelope and time, we deliver Mac, like we run Mac applications faster than any other applications on the planet. And that's like a very pure goal for that team. Yeah. And those SOBs deliver it. Like it's amazing how that focus has filtered down into a really interesting range of products that we've never really seen, like high efficiency desktops before, and what that enables them to build. Yeah. So I'm impressed with his whole organization at Apple.
Yeah. I think that we're seeing this in a couple of different places where the ecosystem is starting for many companies becoming really important. Like it is the fact that Apple owns all of those things, and we see that in other places in our area. Blackmagic is slowly just adding all these things to all the, and to where you go, well, I could buy another camera, but then I'd have to figure out how to shade it. I just had that conversation this morning with someone. I was like, we could use other cameras, but then it'll get a lot more expensive and it won't work as well. And so, and I think that lock-in becomes big as people start to really build the whole pipeline. I think in the past, we really thought of people should specialize and they should do what they do really well. But there is something to be said for building a whole ecosystem where everything just works with each other.
Information article, Apple's privacy rules leaves its engineers in the dark. This is Wayne Ma in this story. This is not the first story we've seen saying Apple suffers somewhat in its process because of its need for secrecy. In fact, I don't think this is even the first time the information.
Years ago,
no, Craig addressed it. Yeah.
Years ago,
we
it was
don't
probably
need,
15.
Go ahead,
15.
Go ahead, Alex, and then we'll go back.
I was just 15 years. I spent a lot of time going to Infinite Loop for different meetings, and it slowly became clear to me that I think I knew more about what Apple was doing than the engineers that I was talking to. Because I was meeting with like 6 different teams for something, and it was like I realized that they don't talk to each other at all. Like no one, and the thing is that culturally they don't want to know. Like they don't want to know stuff that could get them in trouble. They don't, what should be secret or not. They want to know what they need to know. But other people's secret things is not something they don't ask. They don't go into a meeting going, hey, what are you guys working on? Like nobody does that.
There's something to be said for that kind of collegiality and that sharing of information. You learn from one another, and you lose something if you don't do that.
Yeah. That is a very, very serious issue. If that is a career limiting offense if you simply know something that you're not supposed to know, no matter how you found out about it. That leads to an investigation and then bad things.
It's always hilarious because like before the event, you'll have a bunch of Apple people and they're like, "What are you working on?" I can't say. "What are you working on?"
Right.
I can't say. Oh, y'all have like these black packages all over themselves, and then the day after the event, they've all got their new phones out and their new headsets out and their new things out. They go, "Oh, you did that. Oh, you did that," and it's hilarious. But like Guy English wrote this famous article a few years ago where he's like, the supervisor says, "Why doesn't your new dingus work with Black Bear? I don't know what Black Bear is. What is the matter with you people? Go over there and find out." And the guy's like, "I can't tell you." And he's like, "I can't tell you either." And then iOS ships and Siri can't talk to Find My Friends because nobody could talk to each other at Apple, and that affects users.
On the other side of it, I've worked with a lot of big companies, and another company, there's a lot of free flow of information, but the problem is that people who didn't own that information weren't nearly as careful about keeping it secret as the people who, their job depended on it being successful. And so that cross-pollination, while allowing for communication, meant that people would just talk to their friends about it because it's not their project, and so sometimes things leak out. Things become much more sieve-like when everybody's trading that information because the people who are not in that division are not as careful as the people that are in the division about keeping it from going to the outside world. And so I think that there's a balancing act there.
The former Apple employees, many of whom have also worked at Amazon, Google, and Facebook, say Apple's privacy restrictions stand apart from those of their peers. The vanguard of Apple's restrictions is its privacy engineering team, which is made up of several dozen employees and acts as a powerful gatekeeper. Even junior privacy engineers can veto requests from senior managers at other parts of the company. So partly this is, so there's two things going on. There's internal secrecy, but there's also the desire to respect the privacy of your customers. And Ma is talking about both of those as being a problem for Apple. And we've talked before about how Siri is limited. But it's very different things.
Yeah, Craig said very famously, we don't need to access your camera roll to see what a mountain looks like. We can get a billion photos of mountains off the internet. We're fine. But in order to do anything interesting behaviorally, which is what Google and Amazon excel at, they need deep access to your data to figure out when you're going to an airport and to warn you ahead of time and to do all of these. And Apple is doing very small silos into all those things, but they don't have the big picture. And to be that's why I think like Siri's not really an assistant. Like Siri can be helpful, but to be an assistant, they really got to be up in your business the way an assistant is. And Apple's put a line in the sand there. And they have been more flexible recently. Like they moved some of their inviolate privacy lines because they realized, for example, with health data, which is super sensitive, you might be incapable of handling your own health data, and you have like an assistant or a care provider or a family member doing it, and they have to make that kind of sharing stuff. And I wish that I know Andy said this for a long time, I wish that I could give Apple permission to access more of my stuff so that I could get better results out of it. I'm not adverse to that bargain at all.
Yeah. I think we like it that Apple respects our privacy and understand, I think, that hobbles it in some ways. Apple Maps isn't collecting information about everywhere we go like Google Maps is.
They can ask me, like informed consent. That's Steve's thing, was like, ask me again, ask me over and over again.
I mean, it's like Renee said, it's an interesting balancing act that Apple has to maintain. On the one hand, I honestly think that of all the really big tech companies, there's nobody that I trust, lowercase t, trust more than Apple with my personal data. So if they did give me a pop-up that said, oh, by the way, if you allow us to collect this information, here's how we can improve your experience specifically, and also here's how you can track how we're tracking you. Here's how we can turn this off. And by the way, we are basically leasing this information from you. It still belongs to you. I would go for that in a heartbeat. But on the other hand, the more that they weaken this idea that no, we are not going to make any money under any way, shape, or form on tracking your personal data under any circumstances. Once they lose that sort of, this is the company that you can legitimately trust more than most, they lose something very, very valuable. I mean, Google has to toe that line as well. They also have a board that has the power to nix a really, really huge artificial intelligence cloud contract because no, it does not meet our ethical guidelines. No, it does not meet our safety and security guidelines. But the thing is, Google has to make money off of this, and they have to have all this data in order to do all the magic things they want to do. So it really is. This is why Apple really couldn't succeed without Google. Google couldn't succeed without Apple. So long as people have that choice to make, which deal do you want to make, then we're all good. If we were locked into one mode, it would be pretty terrible.
Hey, it's Earth Day. Woohoo!
Oh, good for Earth.
Almost Earth Day.
Almost. The 20, what is it, the 23rd? 22nd.
We're Earthlings. We're up for this.
It'll be Earth Day day after tomorrow. No, 3 days. Thursday to Wednesday, Friday. Thank you, Friday.
Happy days.
Every day is Earth Day on this planet. Apple's launched a new Time to Walk workout for Apple Fitness Plus with Dr. Jane Goodall. Nice. She's
so great.
You've dealt with her in Rwanda.
Yeah. I mean, I've dealt with her a bunch. I met her in Tanzania. We were both at TED, and
nice.
She's an incredible memory. Like my business partner who runs the school in Rwanda, he grew up in Tanzania with his father. His father was a researcher and a peer to Jane Goodall, and he was the first person ever to be documented being chased by chimpanzees that were going to eat him because he was 6 years old. And it was funny because
keep running, Saul. We're getting great data.
They wrote because they just noticed it down there. They have this thing where they circle, and that means they're getting ready to eat. And anyway, so they obviously scared them off. He's still alive. He's running the school. But the funny thing is this is like 50 years ago or 40 years ago. And so when I was talking to Jane Goodall, I said, so my business partner is a guy named Chris Marler, and she goes, oh, I remember his father. And then she goes, did he ever tell you what happened with the chimpanzees? They couldn't. That was dangerous. Like she was still upset. She was still upset 40 years later about what happened there. You know, she's very sweet. Anyway, so yeah, she's great. I mean, it's amazing how much energy. You know, she just is really, this is her thing, and every time you put her on stage or on a camera, she just lights up and talks about it. It's
neat, really neat. What else are they doing? There's a new Time to Run edition that takes, I don't even know about Time to Run because walking is about as fast as I can go.
Sticking with the walking.
Yeah, I'm sticking with the walking. Takes listeners through the beautiful sights and sounds of Yosemite National Park with an uplifting pop and rock playlist. Okay.
See, where I have it, I have time to walk, but for me, it's nature.
Nature. Yeah.
I listen to the birds.
Yeah. That's pretty. Apple Fitness Plus users who complete these or any other workout of 30 minutes or more on Earth Day, Friday, will earn a limited edition award on their Apple Watch. Apple Maps is also introducing 25 new guides to make it easier than ever to find beautiful green spaces, family fun in nature, city walks, and trails. These are from Lonely Planet, all trails in the Nature Conservancy. And on April 22nd, you might want to look for a new immersive augmented reality experience in Snapchat showing the exciting environmental innovations behind iPhone 13. Oh, it's an ad. Okay. Okay.
I just want to know. I want to know when Apple is going to send us NFTs for our achievements.
There might as well be. There is, right?
Here's like a little you did a good job, and I want an NFT out of that. And then I can,
Then what?
That's too low for 10 cents. Apple's brand.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Jack's NFT was like what was 4 million something, and now they can't sell it for $200.
Right.
$2,000. I'll have you know.
Yeah, I think it was 29 million initially, right? So he's going to lose. The guy who bought it's going to lose a little bit of money. But really, NFTs are not about speculation. They're about owning that fine tweet. So enjoy.
And
it's about owning a fungible copy of that tweet on one of the blockchains which is registered.
Well, same thing.
Yeah.
From now through April 22nd, Apple will donate $1 to the World Wildlife Fund for every purchase made with Apple Pay through the Apple stores, including the online one. So celebrate by buying something from Apple.
Yes. Consume.
Well, I'm not anti-NFT, by the way. I'm just anti-grift. If you can come up with something that's amazing with it, I'm all for it. But I don't like the grift.
As usual, it's there's so many things about technology where it's a great idea. It could transform and improve lots of things, but humans get involved and they screw it up. It's like when I first heard about it a couple of years ago, it was all my thoughts were like there's so many fine artists who are working in the digital realm. Like this thing never exists as a physical, tangible object. It is, and it has to be an installation if you're going to exhibit it. And if you're going to sort of buy it, unquote, it basically is like buying a service and buying a contract to maintain that service. And also all the brilliant things that people are doing in 3D with 3D brush painting, where it's a VR immersive experience, and this is legitimate art. This is a medium that has never existed before, in a way of human emotion interacting with creativity that we have never had before. Not since the biggest revolution since then has been the moving picture, maybe. But how do we get to a point where the people who create these things can get paid for these things in a very, very relatable way? So the idea of having, we're going to, yes, it's bits, and technically speaking, yes, these bits can be copied and duplicated everywhere, but there can be one authoritative owner, the one person who said, I'm going to put skin in this game, I'm going to give this artist $60,000 to basically say that I'm the one who owns this thing and has the ability to sell it for a profit or a loss. That was a very, very an idea with a lot of potential. But after it became, hey, look, here's a picture of a candy wrapper on my desk. It costs $80,000, and then you get $2 million for it. It's like, okay, they're idiots. They're crypto idiots involved in this.
And they didn't figure out the copyright doesn't transfer yet. I mean, the whole thing is still so nascent.
Well, the artist would never want to sell the copyright, but as an object that, I mean, not that fine art sales isn't a stupid insane market to begin with. I mean, look at what got paid for a
Not if you're laundering, Andy.
You know, if you keep this thing parked in a tax-free shelter in a warehouse, and so that it never actually moves anything except for like one piece of data from one spreadsheet to another, awesome. But yeah.
Let's take a little break because I want to talk about something with real value. The thousands of domain names that I own on hover.com. That is the place I go to buy domain names. Some of them silly, some of them important, like twit.tv, like leolaporte.com. Hover is the place to get domain names. And if you're in a business and you don't own your own domain name, if your mail is still going to hotmail.com or gmail.com, you need to go to hover.com right now and get a domain name or email address that's yours. It's just for you, whether you're a blogger, an artist creating a portfolio, building your NFT store, just want to make some more memorable redirects to your resume on LinkedIn, you got to go to hover.com. Let's start with email. It's your key to connecting with customers and building trust for your brand. But how are they going to trust you if it's mygreatwidgets@gmail.com instead of leo@mygreatwidgets.com? Easy to set up at Hover. They've got domain-based emails for all your needs, small or large. You could set up as many mailboxes to your domain as you need, and it's nice. It's convenient because when your domain renews, your mailboxes do too. And the prices are great. You should check out the prices. Their most popular mailbox. It's just a no-brainer solution for business owners. Plus, it's email. They've got a webmail solution, but you can use your existing email client as well. It's real email. Hover isn't here to upsell you on stuff you don't need either. I love that. If you've ever registered a domain anywhere else, you know there's page after page of upsell. Not Hover. The tools are great pro-level tools. If you are good with DNS, you'll love their domain name management system. Very powerful. Same with their email tools. They're intuitive and easy to use, whether you're a web pro or just getting started. They offer Whois privacy protection, not as an add-on, but with every single domain purchase, so that your private information remains just that, private. And Hover Connect, if you don't want to do DNS, is a great way to connect your domain to your website with just a couple of clicks. Connect is amazing. At Hover, you're a customer, not a source of data. Take back control of your data with reliable, tracker-free email. Hover's trusted by hundreds of thousands of customers who use their domain names and email to turn their ideas into reality. We're going to get you 10% off your first purchase on any domain extension for the entire first year right now. If you go to hover.com/twit, whether you're a developer, a photographer, a small business, Hover has something for you to expand your projects and get the visibility you want. Hover.com/twit, 10% off your first purchase of any domain extension for the entire first year. Hover.com/twit for 10% off. And we thank Hover so much for their support of MacBreak Weekly. You support us when you use that address. Please do. We love you, Hover. If you are going to steal some of these AirPods, isn't this a great story? This is a post from Instagram from Vitaly Semenets. He is a Ukrainian man whose AirPods were stolen by retreating Russian forces who looted his home. He tracked them all the way back from his home in Gostomel into Russia. He knows where his AirPods are. I'm not sure he should go. I wouldn't recommend going to get them. Apparently, it shows the actual movement of Russian forces as they retreat from an initial plan to attack Kyiv. They crossed the border into Belarus, eventually reached Belgorod, where they are amassing troops for an assault, apparently, on the eastern region of the Donbass. 28,000 likes on his Instagram. And by the way, a number of requests that Apple give him new AirPods. Semenets writes in Ukrainian on his Instagram, "Thanks to technology, I know where my AirPods are now."
No, request for Apple to send them like 100 and just leave them scattered.
Yeah,
throughout the terrain.
Wow. Find my AirPods.
If you return my AirPods now, they'll be the end of it. But if you don't, I will look for them.
Wow.
I will find them.
Wow. And there is a long article in Ars Technica by Dan Gooden, who's their security guy, about how people are getting around ATT, the application protection, privacy protection, without, of course, the IDFA. And by the way, Facebook says we lost $10 billion this year. We're going to lose even more next year thanks to ATT.
There was an update on that. I saw a really good update on that. And they were saying that originally that was the thought because people stopped being able to see the direct results of their ad spend in Facebook and Instagram. So they lowered their ad spend and then they started selling fewer products. So they upped their ad spend again. And they realized that because of these new guidelines, they just weren't seeing it in Facebook and Instagram. They were seeing it in their own coffers.
Right.
So what they did was they're still spending the money. It's just Facebook isn't getting all the data anymore. They're actually getting it. So they're resuming their spending. It was an interesting adjustment period.
It was an interesting, this is quoting an interesting research paper that says that while ATT works in many ways as intended, loopholes in the framework also provide opportunity for companies, particularly large ones like Google and Facebook, to work around the protections and stockpile even more data. We've said this before, first-party data collection is even better. Overall, our observations suggest, the paper says, while Apple's changes make tracking individual users more difficult, they motivate a counter movement and reinforce existing market power of gatekeeper companies with access to large troves of first-party.
And if you're using Chrome, I mean, Google knows what you're doing. There's no ATP is not going to protect you against Chrome.
No. Well, that's why Google said at the time that they don't anticipate having any, basically it affecting their bottom line. Facebook had to make that disclosure because it was affecting their business, and they had to mention that to stockholders. And it is just as you said, it's the difference between Facebook getting most of their data through a Facebook app, over which Apple can have extreme tight control, versus Google getting most of their data through the browser that is the primary browser of choice for 68% of the world's browsing. And that Android. They actually also create. Yeah, exactly. So
and Google way smarter than Facebook, we've determined.
Yeah.
Well, I think that also that what we're seeing is Apple, we've talked about this before, but they're slowly pulling that net in. If you pull it in too much, then everyone complains about it and it doesn't seem defendable. But if especially, it's very hard to say that you shouldn't allow users to decide whether they want to be tracked.
Yeah.
So that's a very hard to defend situation. And so Apple has started with that. And as they just keep on, we noticed that there were some loopholes and the users would like to see something more, and we'll just close that door too. But doing it just behind the users is better than getting too far ahead of them.
Yeah, that's one thing the researchers point out. For instance, they identified 9 iOS apps which use server-side code to generate a mutual user identifier, not Apple's, but another one that Alibaba can use for cross-app tracking. That technically violates Apple's policy, but Apple isn't necessarily enforcing it.
And also, more people are opting in, if I read that right, because they're making a better case for why some of the stuff is and some of the stuff is actually useful. So the numbers have gone up like several percentage points over the last year.
That's interesting, huh?
Which is what we want, right? Like informed consent.
Yeah, informed consent.
Yeah. Also, Apple does have to be careful. If they wanted to, they could really lock down the iPhone so that you are as invisible as you want to be. But the moment that they make it impossible for anybody to make any money whatsoever off of a product, app, or service that doesn't simply charge you $50 to $60 per use of the app. That's when Facebook says, okay, we can't. This is not sustainable. So guess what? We're not going to allow the Facebook app. We're pulling the Facebook app from the Apple Store. If people want to use Facebook through the iPhone, they're going to have to use a web browser, and then there'll be so many complaints from Instagram users, WhatsApp users, all those other users that they would have to pull back. But I don't even think that Apple wants to be that draconian. There's simple things they can do that are just hard to argue against if your company pretends to care about user privacy and choice, and so they're doing those things. Good for them.
And it's just hard. It's not as popular to legislate against as well. I mean, you have a lot of folks that are already trying to get legislation done, and when you look at it on the face, it's like, oh, it's going to be hard. That's going to be a hard one to regulate. Is giving people access to, just giving them a button to push. So I think if Apple keeps on taking that path in that area, it might be hard to push them out.
Renee, you were referring to research from a company called Adjust, a research firm. When ATT, App Tracking Transparency, first came out, we said about 4% of users opted in. Almost everybody said no. According to Adjust, In May of last year, opt-in rates were around 16%. Now that number a year later is 25%. And it really does very much depend on the app. When it comes to games, it's 30%. This is global research considering the 2,000 most popular apps in a Just's database. In some cases, popular games have achieved opt-in rates of up to 75%.
But it was a big shock too. It was like, remember when Apple turned in Bluetooth tracking and suddenly we saw all the apps that were taking Bluetooth out of app with no reason to. And when they turned on app tracking transparency, it's like every TV show app I had suddenly started going, can we track you? I'm like, no, I'm watching like The Simpsons. You're not tracking me. It was just like a big shock as to everyone who was pulling all that data. Now we have some control over it. So we're assigning it to the apps that make sense, and we're not to the apps that we're just using it to get data to sell for their own purposes.
And I'm guessing that the games that people say yes to are probably offering you something for that, right? So
yeah, free levels if you watch ads.
Yeah,
or something.
that kind of thing. And you know what? If people are making that conscious choice, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. We've talked about the fact that Apple, in its fight with Epic, is also locking out Unreal Engine, but there is a new game creation tool called Core that is moving to iOS and Mac this summer. It has been on PC, and it lets you build games on Unreal Engine. So that's kind of interesting. I guess that's a way to it's from Manticore Games.
Well, there's other ways to build games too, is just with Unity.
Yeah.
so I think it's going to be interesting to see how that works out.
Yeah.
Did we notice that Apple was like super happy to get out in front and give a signed personal statement about Facebook's new revenue share?
No, what did they say?
Criteria. So Facebook.
Oh,
put out
yeah,
this
that's
thing
right. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Facebook originally said it is usurious that Apple is asking for this high, like 30% commission. It's going to put people out of jobs, out of business. It's terrible. It's bad for the economy. It's making puppies cry and trees burn. And then they said, when we come out with ours, it's going to be fair. It's going to promote all of this activity. It's going to be great for developers. Turns out, like they put out a double tax on it, so you got to pay like their 30% plus 25%. So it ends up being like something around over 50%. And Apple's Fred Sains, who's a wonderful, wonderful gentleman, just said, it's a little bit hypocritical for Facebook to now come out.
I think Tim Cook may have said something as well. So you get the standard 30% on the MetaQuest store, but then if you're going to use it in Horizon Worlds, you're going to get an additional 17.5%. That's 47.5%. And then you add the credit card fee, which they don't cover. And you're well over 50%.
And their base is the same as Apple's, which they were like up in arms about.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
The world is funny.
What a surprise, right?
Yeah. Facebook, who could have thought it?
Who would have thought Facebook would have done that, huh? Apple apparently, they got Friday Night Baseball. The jury's still out on whether they've got a decent announced team, but they got baseball on Friday nights. They wanted the NFL Sunday Ticket, which currently DirecTV has, and I'm seeing a number of people saying it's already a done deal, but Apple doesn't want anybody to announce it yet.
There's no way that DirecTV can compete with Apple.
No.
If Apple wants the contract.
Yeah. They were paying $1.5 billion a year to the NFL. $1.5 billion a year for a Sunday ticket. Apple, of course, can come in.
1/8 of Apple's Google money.
Right, they can come in.
Yeah, exactly.
The expectation is around $2.5 billion is going to be the selling price. Which means,
and the ticket wasn't an exclusive. It's not taking games away from viewers anywhere. It is making sure that I think if you have the ticket, you can watch any game from you can see any game inside of
except your local one, right?
They still have the market blackouts, yeah.
But it'd be great if you can see them. The problem with the networks is you can barely, you just have to guess whether your team is going to be on that, that if you don't have the NFL ticket, and then even the NFL ticket takes it away. So the big thing with DirecTV was that you could, except for your local market, you could see anything that was out there. And so that was a lot. That was a big advantage of being able to kind of tune into anything. I think Verizon had something like that as well. So it wasn't completely exclusive. So it's not taking games away from people who would have them any other way, except for DirecTV. Like people who have DirecTV, it's going to take it away from them. So that's the place that it'll be a big change because it's been around for.
Well, and it was a huge selling point. I remember when we were looking at the various satellite providers, there was no question. If you like NFL football, you get DirecTV.
Right.
I mean, there was just no question. They had, that's the one you had to get. So I have a feeling that's not going to be very good. So Amazon, Disney, Comcast, Paramount, all apparently in the bidding, but it's hard to outbid Apple on something like that. Right?
If they want it.
If they want it.
But Disney could have had Mickey in the calling the games. I mean,
Oh, it's a touchdown! Oh,
well, and Disney already has ABC and ESPN and a lot of other things. So Disney's already got a lot of sports that they access.
we're actually not far off. Didn't Nickelodeon have NFL play-by-play in the playoffs? They had a Nickelodeon version of it to get kids
Did they slime the players
into football. Yes, they did.
Oh.
But not for, it was animated slime, I think. It wasn't, the players were a little busy doing something else, but yeah.
Last thing we need is for Disney to like take over like football or any other game. It'd be like the third quarter would be like a soccer game that they also own from someplace else, and then you have to watch a soccer game 2 weeks later to find out how the football game ended.
Yeah,
it would be Kingdom Hearts.
NFL has reportedly wanted Sunday Ticket to go to Apple for a few months now. Apple's apparently planning to spend billions on live sports over the next 4 years for its Apple TV Plus. It is definitely a driver. I mean, there's no question having live sports is a huge thing, especially in this era of cord cutting. So good for Apple on this one. I hope I wonder. I mean, I imagine MLB and NFL have some say in how it's produced, but as we've said with the baseball, we'd love to see some innovation here.
Shouldn't they be getting like a cricket world championships and some Manchester United in there and then boost the numbers?
Worldwide, yeah.
Cricket is just absolutely huge, and also unlike sports like baseball, cricket recently basically looked at all the complaints of people who were making like about baseball that were being made about their own events, that it's too long, there's not enough movement. They created essentially a version of speed cricket that absolutely revolutionized like, the sport. Yeah, no, it's an
oxymoron if ever I heard one.
No, because it turns it from like a 3-day like test match to no, you've got only a certain number of hours, you have a certain number of goals, you have to, it's not like I won't say I got hooked on it, but once you start like watching some of these matches, especially like really, really like deep rivalries, the fans are more insane than any place else without being violent. The players are like it's an amazing thing that no American broadcaster has said, we could probably get this pretty cheap, and it is very, very exciting. Yep. And this would be and it would also bring in a lot of subscribers that we won't be able to access otherwise.
All that expat money.
I think the thing is that the direction, though, in my opinion, the great thing about baseball is the conversation that you can have around it, and the fact that they do a little bit of that, but they show so little data, and they have so few things that I think there's a huge opportunity in baseball to vastly increase it, not by making it faster, but by making it just adding more detail between the.
Did you tell us, Alex?
Yeah, you tell.
Did you?
Oh man, so the problem was we were telestrating basketball games, professional basketball games, and we were telestrating. The problem is the game keeps going all the time. It's like always going all the time. You can't draw or anything. That's the best part of football, is that everything stops all the time. So you can sit there and go, okay, this is what happened, and this is how you know it, and that's part of what makes football and baseball so interesting. But people have never really taken advantage of it with baseball, but they definitely take advantage of it in football. I mean, if you look at a lot of all that telestration and all the, I mean, and it's, if you really watch like Sunday Night Football, it is an amazing amount of data that they are passing to you about the game. About here, like all those replays that are happening. When you think about it, the game, the play just ended, and now we're going to give you a cogent conversation for 25 seconds about what just happened and set you up for the next one. And then we're going to do that like 300 times. It's just an amazing thing. It really is an amazing coverage. And hopefully Apple, I mean, there's definitely places to innovate, but the NFL spends so much time and money innovating, on their game.
Well, I've seen people say, and I wonder if this eventually won't be the case, that the NFL eventually should just take all the games and make you subscribe to NFL Plus and just do it that way.
Right? It's a big risk.
That was huge, because the thing is, golf can pull something like that because their advertisers are basically selling they're selling $80,000 cars. Most major league sports, however, you're selling to everybody, and if you basically suddenly say that the only people that are allowed to watch this sport are the people who can afford an extra subscription and also the hardware that's required and the broadband connection that's required, now you're really limiting your advertising base, and that's how you drive people to gaming. That's how you drive people to something else. They're going to find someplace else to spend their money, and it's just not going to be basketball. It's not going to be football.
I mean, the other issue is, I mean, the NFL already has. I mean, you don't need an internet connection. It already has. It's on cable. It's on satellite. It does. There's an NFL network. But the problem is, you can only cover one game at a time, and there's a whole bunch of games going on. So you might as well spread it out so that you can get and make money at it. It takes so much risk away when you force somebody else.
Let
to sell
somebody
all
else take the
advertising.
risk. That's a very good point. Yeah.
By the way, it's not called speed cricket. It's called T20 or 2020.
2020 cricket.
There we go.
It's go on YouTube and basically Google like T20 or 2020, and it's like it won't turn you into like an absolute devotee, but you'll click through for a lot of other videos when it's like it basically is like it's 3 hours, it's only 20 overs. It's like, so basically no screwing around. You're gonna have to bowl, you're gonna have to hit, you're gonna have to run. It's a much more, like I said, I'd love to see someone try to do that with baseball. I think there's anything wrong with like the existing baseball, but some way to say that, look, here's a way we're going to make it. We're not going to change Major League Baseball. We're going to create T20 baseball where it's 90 minutes, and here are ways to make sure that it's all about base running. It's all about hitting. It's no longer necessarily like a 20-minute pitcher's duel between like at a single at bat. Because I think that's great, but I would love to see what would happen if it's like there's nobody above the age of 23 will possibly be in any kind of shape to play T20 Major League Baseball.
That's why I like baseball. You can be a fat old guy and still hit a home run.
48-year-old starting pitcher was throwing 93-mile-an-hour fastballs on opening day.
Yeah, love that. Get ready, Renee, because Niantic has a new game. It's basically it looks like Pokemon without the licensing
fees.
issues. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Or Harry Potter, right?
It's not Harry Potter. It's Peridot. Explore the world with adorable virtual pets. Where you care for, you adventure together on daily walks, you satisfy your creature's desires. Well, that doesn't sound like fun. Uncover hidden treasures around the world. Here, let's watch it. It's AR. It's going to be on the iPhone. It's not out yet. See your little
crossover with Ingress.
Little virtual pets with you. You know what? This might do well. I don't know.
Yeah, it's Tamagotchi.
Yeah, I guess with some Pokemon elements, because you got to get out there and do things, I think.
And it's funny because there's a big controversy right now in the Pokemon community because they're trying to force people to go outside again. And in some places, it's still not safe.
Right.
But it turns out they're trying to build a walked travel map network, and they need us to go out there and collect all that data for them. So it's super inconvenient that we're not out there.
We need you to get out there. Get out there and walk. Yeah, Lisa gets angry because they've all of the things they added to make it easy to play at home on COVID, they're starting to take out. And it's like, now you got to really play again.
Alert, there's a 9-star Charizard at the closest donut shop that is open that is handicapped accessible. Go and find it.
Pretty much. That's pretty much the story right there. All right. I think we should get our picks of the week ready. But
just before we let this go, like it's really bizarre. Like now, a lot of the Pokestops, you have this special disc on. You press it, and you get extra stuff for taking your camera out, walking around it, and collecting complete AR like 3D imagery for them of this. And like you're just getting a couple extra Pokeballs for it. It's ingenious.
Yeah. It's evil genius.
Yes. Apple's paying people.
Do you still play? Lisa said, Renee's in a raid with me, I think, the other day. You still play?
Yes. Yeah. I don't play, like, they're starting to really, like, bother me with some of the same changes they're making that's bothering Lisa. So I don't play as often anymore, but still, like, when I have time, I do.
Yeah. It was, I have to say, we played pretty hard, as you know, starting in July 2016 when it came out, and walked a lot of miles, and it was fun. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
COVID
I'm always
kinda
amazed
killed
at how fickle an audience will be and how dangerous it is to change things.
Yes.
Because it's just like, like someone changes
right.
one little thing, and I bought all my clothes from Eddie Bauer because there's one in the Roland Plaza in Novato. I mean, I just had lots of them, and then they closed it. They moved it to Petaluma, and now I went to somewhere else. Like I was like, I'm not going to
Trader Joe's.
It's like,
yeah,
it's too far away.
Yeah,
but you have to be very careful. And I just noticed how many products that they'll change one weird little thing, and then I just stop using it. Like, I'm not going to use this anymore.
Well, I probably shouldn't tell you then that we've added annual subscriptions to Club Twit. That might Might
No, that's
scotch the whole thing.
That's good. So, but that's good. That's win-win. It's when it feels like it's an inequitable change. Like when you feel like you're changing for your benefit and not mine, that people get upset.
So you're not confident that you can basically keep people engaged on a month-by-month basis.
No. The funny thing, and this will be the controversial thing. So it's $7 a month. Ad-free versions of all of our shows, access to our really fun Discord where there's all sorts of interesting things going on, like the Untitled Linux show, Stacy's book club. Jeff Jarvis did an AMA last week, things like that. And, of course, the Twit Plus feed, which has all sorts of interesting stuff. We've had a corporate plan for a while. That's done pretty well. That's $6 a month for from 5 to as many seats as you want. But people kept saying, but I just want to pay once. I don't want to pay monthly. And so I think they thought maybe we'd give them a discount, but no, we're just going to say it's $84 for a year and see what happens. Because it's still, I think, a very good deal. But if you just want to pay once a year, and this is what put us over the top, if you want to buy it as a gift, $7 is not a great gift, but you could buy the $84 a year, and that'd be a better gift. So twit.tv, please. Don't all quit the club at once. Twit.tv/clubtwit. It really does help us. And it honestly takes us a little way towards our goal of kind of, ad-free forever, which, that was the dream in the very beginning. Didn't seem doable. And we love our advertisers. We're very careful in how we pick them, so it's not so bad. But, especially as time goes by, it'd be nice to just, with Spotify eating the world, to have another source of revenue that is not an advertiser. So that's why we started Club Twit, and you help us a lot if you join it. Twit.tv/clubtwit. Now, speaking of advertisers I'm fond of, this is a great Earth Day advertiser. Blue Land, that an estimated 5 billion plastic hand soap and cleaning bottles are thrown away every year. 5 billion. And if that weren't bad enough, most of the stuff in the cleaning bottle is water, 90% water. So you're paying a lot of money to transport water around in trucks. Bad for the planet, bad for your pocketbook. Blue Land is the solution. Blue Land is designed to be, you buy these forever bottles for $10, and when you buy a kit, and designed to be reused forever with money-saving refill tablets that start at just $2. On Twit on Sunday, I made some hand soap. I should fill this with water. I could fill this with water. This is the multi-surface cleaner. These are the tablets. So once you get the bottle, and by the way, I have these throughout our house. In fact, it's a great housewarming gift. I gave it to my daughter for her new apartment. Once you have these in the house, they have a replenishment service if you want to subscribe. Otherwise, you can order as needed. You just put your water in these plastic bottles you never throw out. Actually, the hand soap comes in these beautiful heavy glass bottles because it needs to be heavy because you're going to squirt it. I just think this is great. Blue Land was founded on the belief a cleaner planet starts by eliminating plastic waste. And I know you're thinking this, I don't want to make a sacrifice for the planet with ineffective cleaners. No, these are really great, powerful, effective cleaners. In fact, in some cases, I think you're going to prefer these to the expensive, wasteful plastic bottles you're buying. In many cases, what people really love is the toilet tablet cleaner, which you put in the toilet tablet. It cleans the toilet. You use the brush and walk away, finish your cleaning, and then you're done. We use it in the laundry. They have also an oxy cleaner that gives you bleach-like cleaning. They have that's the dishwashing soap. A powdered dishwashing soap does a great job. I would say argue better than the liquid dishwashing soaps. I just love it. Blue Land, buy the bottle once, refill it forever, no more plastic waste. The only thing you have to throw out, your outdated idea that eco-friendly products are more expensive and less effective. Just read the reviews at the site and you'll see. And by the way, the scents they have are fantastic. Now, we actually don't, Lisa doesn't like scents, so we use the unscented laundry stuff. But if you like scents, iris agave, perine lemon, lavender, eucalyptus, they're very light. They're not overpowering. And they have special scents every once in a while. I just ordered a new set of seasonal scents, which is kind of fun on your hand soap when your hands, oh, that smells good. Just try Blue Land. You will love it. The planet will thank you. Your pocketbook will thank you. as little as $2 for the refill tablets. Right now, 20% off your first order. Just go to Blueland, BLUELAND, blueland.com/MacBreak. This is just, to me, just makes so much sense. Blueland.com/MacBreak. We have Blueland cleaners throughout our house. I just wanted to show you. I should have. This is I call this my chemistry set. I should have actually made this. Next time I'll make it. But you just put warm water in there up to the line. You put the tablet in there. It fizzes. You got the greatest cleaners ever. Save 20% off your first order when you go to Blueland.com/MacBreak. Thank you, Blueland, for your support and for the good work you're doing for the planet. That'd be a good Earth Day purchase. Honey, we're going green. 8888 ask Leo I don't know why I said that. That's the phone number, but don't call it because there's nobody there over there. I just saw it. I thought I'll say it. I don't know. I'm on automatic, John. Let's start our picks of the week with Rene Ritchie.
I have an interesting one this week. So I haven't seen The Batman yet, so please no spoilers. It's just coming out now, so I'm going to watch it sometime this week.
It's on HBO Max now if you subscribe.
Yes.
And Lisa and I watched
Crave in Canada.
We watched it last night on the OLED 4K 70-inch screen with surround. It sounded great, looked great. It's a beautiful movie. Really is.
So that's the whole thing. There's a YouTuber, Patrick Tomaso, who's a photographer, and he went through and he's just talking about the look they did for this movie because they did a lot of things. Like they got Ari to make them a set of custom lenses that deliberately destroyed the normal focal position of those lenses.
Oh,
so
interesting.
it would have interesting things in and out of focus, and it would sort of pull your eye in different directions. And then they also, like they filmed it digitally on the Ari cameras, but then they scanned it into film. They processed it that way, then scanned it in again. I forget the name of it, but it's like an orange emulsion stage of filming, then rescanned it back into digital so they get the exact sort of film color profiles they want. And they went out of their way to dirty things up. So there is a lot of blur. There is a lot of depth of field. There's things in the foreground and the background. There's a lot of off-angle shots or shots when you're looking through something. And everything from the color grade, they were sort of saying, and he's the same cinematographer who did Dune. He's just very, very talented.
Oh, Dune's amazing. Yeah.
By
the way,
so gorgeous.
I hope this isn't a spoiler, but the Penguin, that's Colin Farrell.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's I'm watching
ridiculous.
The credits. I'm saying Colin Farrell was in this movie. Yeah, this is the new thing now. If you're an actor, you gotta do the prosthetics and the heavy makeup.
Yeah, you gotta ugly yourself up.
You gotta ugly yourself up. Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can find a shot. It doesn't look like Colin Farrell.
So many movies are so sterile and so pretty and so perfect
this is
that this is a complete repudiation of all of that. And like Patrick, I really hope it leads to a lot more interesting ways of making these big budget movies, because you don't have to be digitally perfect. We're way beyond like just pure green screen and warehouses. There's so many interesting things we can do both digitally and optically. And I hope this and Dune starts to reset that trend.
Yeah. That's something I find so annoying. I enjoyed Death on the Nile when I watched it last week, but it was that to an extreme where real life and real photography, you don't have complete HDR like Instagram style imagery frame by frame by frame. I compared it to I watched the ITV, the British TV version of the exact same story, and it's like I kind of enjoy the TV version more because when the boat is going, like it's a beautiful shot of this boat going up the river, but the thing is the sky, it's okay for the sky to be gray, it's okay for there to be bright spots and dark spots in it, it's okay for the camera not to be in exactly the right position to catch this bird that happened to be flying away. It's like that was why it felt like a video game watching this modern movie, and this is one of the reasons why a lot of modern action movies kind of don't do it for me, because everyone's concerned about, well, if we're going to do the sky digitally, I want make it 4 seagulls, make it mockingbirds flying in this formation, and they land on this thing, and there's nothing that's random, and there's nothing that isn't like choreographed.
In this, they put silicone on the lens so that the rain would hit it and stay on it. It wouldn't get cleaned off.
There's so much rain in this movie. It is the wettest movie.
They even show Christopher Nolan's like Gotham, which is Chicago. Like it looks like Chicago, and this Gotham, which doesn't look like any city.
Oh, by the way, the art direction in this, you will love how Gotham looks.
Yeah.
The art direction in this is spectacular, especially with the cities.
I can't wait to see it.
Just gorgeous. Yeah.
They were making a real movie. They weren't making an event.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
It's funny that
Very
you should
70s
mention the
focused.
Death on the Nile, because I went back and watched the 1978 Peter Ustinov Death on the Nile. It was so much better for one reason. It was actually shot in Egypt.
Yep.
And I recognized these places, and I mean it's real, and you could tell it's not that.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It was cheesy CGI, and the
Yeah, I have to say, I haven't seen Death of the Nile. I've only seen bits and pieces that a couple of us have been talking about. And the effects look so bad.
They're so
like I think that's
terrible.
part of it. Is just it just looks like they really just ran out of money or something.
Yeah.
A lot of it is simply I'll cut myself off after I've got the chalk clock on. Don't worry about it. But it's like I wish that every director would get the one memo that says that not everything has to be a drone shot. I know that you can make the camera start at the bottom and then track all the way up as you go past this monument. It's okay to put the camera on a tripod, lock it down, get your establishing shot, and then cut to someplace closer. Because that's things that kind of bug me.
I was watching a TV show. I can't remember what it was, but they were using tripods. I could tell the shots were perfect and static, and we have gone so far beyond that. Nobody does that anymore. So that when you see it, it's like, wow, that's very old-fashioned. A steady shot. Holy cow.
I think the Matrix kind of just cracked the whole window, and then everyone just flew through it. Now we're finding our way back, but the Matrix was so far out there that it just changed how we made films.
They didn't realize that people don't realize that the reason why the Matrix did it that way is because that's consistent with the story, that they are not in a real place. This is in a simulation where that kind of stuff can be doing. Then we wind up in I haven't seen the sequel to oh God, I can't remember the name, but it was the quartet of magicians. Now you see it. Now you see them. I think. Anyway, there's a sequel to this bad movie in which there's a great scene that could have been done great with practical effects, where one of them has a card, but they're being searched. The four of them are being searched, and they're surreptitiously, because they're magicians and have sleight of hand, can like pass it to each other without anybody who's like searching them knowing that they have it. And if they'd done it as a practical effect, it could have been magic. But instead, it's all digital. You know the card isn't there. And then there's one where, okay, I'm going to flick it behind my ear, and it's going to land in the collar of one of my compatriots. But of course, again, let's have like a micro drone camera follow that car as it spins, and then lands in the neck. And it's like, okay, I'm not in this scene whatsoever.
Actually,
I'm watching a tech
to
demo.
continue this rat hole, the U.S. Football League, USFL, launched this weekend on Fox.
Yep.
And they are, unlike the staid NFL, using helmet cams, and they're using drones, and they're showing off the drones. Now, admittedly, the drone footage is not as high quality, but it's amazing. As you're watching the game, you can see the drones buzzing around the players. They even did one drone shot that starts up in the boxes, swoops down over the crowd onto the field. Look at this. This is incredible. Now, I'm sure a player's going to hit a drone at some point.
Yeah.
But they're little, and this is I'm hoping Apple, if they get NFL, will start to do some interesting things. And this is smart of the USFL because they've got to impress people.
Well, the USFL is like $1 million a game or $500,000 a game, and NFL football is like $50 million a game. So there's a lot more.
I think these are consumer looking drones. I would guess.
They probably are. I mean, the main thing is that what's great about
Look at this shot again. I just got this is a single shot with a drone.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, and the NFL can what you're going to see is the NFL is just going to watch them and figure out which parts of these they want. And NFL is experimenting. They have those super short depth of field shots that don't really work.
They're interesting. They certainly capture your attention. All that bokeh. Yeah.
Like, you could stop it down to 2.8. Like you don't have to open it up to 1.1.
Well, they're trying to show off. I guess that they have bokeh, right?
As long as it improves the storytelling, that's it's all to the good.
Yeah.
The last thing I wanted to add quickly was that on Twitter, there's Stefan Soretti and Todd Vaziri, two ILM artists or supervisors, and they have the best conversations and also share just tons of information about SFX gone right and SFX gone wrong, both practical and CGI, because you could screw up practical effects all day long as well. So it's really interesting to watch.
Todd's great. You should definitely follow him. Yeah. He's got great posts all the time. Yeah.
Andy and Akko, pick of the week.
This is a really great menu app that I just discovered last week, but it solves a basic problem with Bluetooth. It's called Tooth Fairy, and basically all it does is it allows you to create a little menu bar icon for each of the Bluetooth devices that you keep interacting with. So for instance, my problem is that I've got this really great Bluetooth speaker in the office that I often, when I'm not doing a show or I'm not really listening to like really, really great music or anything, that I keep connecting to, but there's so many steps to connect and disconnect from it because I don't want to then be doing a podcast and then, it thinks that my microphone and my speaker are this Google, this Google's Nest Max speaker. But now it's an icon that's in my menu bar. I can simply click on it and it'll connect, click on it again, it will disconnect. If it's like my Bluetooth headphones, it will, if a third party, it will disconnect to that, show me my battery access, any Bluetooth device, and you can when you create this minulet, it will also let you choose what kind of icon you want. So you can easily let this get out of hand, but as a solution for it, there is this thing I don't necessarily always keep connected to, but it's enough of a pain in the butt connecting and disconnecting that I wish I'm not using it as much as I wanted to. This is $6 well spent. Does a very, very simple thing, does it very, very well. And again, I only installed it like last week, but it's like now like 3 or 4 clicks a day with it. So it earned it $6.
It's one of those apps where you feel like maybe they came up with a name first. And now what could a program named Tooth Fairy do?
What domain is still available?
It's a perfect name for this program. I love it. Tooth Fairy, $6, and you can get it at the Mac App Store on SetApp, or I imagine you can get it from the website. C-Command. C-Command does a lot of other stuff too. I remember. Yeah, they do spam. That's right. It's Spam Sieve. It's Michael Sy. Yeah.
Yep.
That's who that is. I knew that name.
The great thing when you find a little app like this is that it is exactly like that. You'll find it's an independent developer that is solving little problems.
Michael's great.
And then you wind up spending another $30 because, ooh, that sounds great. Ooh, that sounds great too.
Yeah. I forgot to mention this, but BB Edit had a big birthday, speaking of independent developers.
30 years since it first went to a public release.
Wow.
30 years?
Yeah.
30 years. There was I retweeted the post to like alt.mac Usenet where Rich Siegel posted that this thing that he's been working on. Oh, here it is. Now it's being released as freeware. Yep, and he's still working on it. He's still improving it, and still the de facto text editor because he just keeps on improving it. The team keeps incorporating,
and it still doesn't suck.
Changes.
Yes,
still absolutely does not suck. The best slogan, the best and most important slogan. There's a great if you look for it, there's a great interview with Rich Siegel on the Apple developer channel, Apple developer site, where you also get to see his parrots, but it also talks about the history and the philosophy of the app, and it just makes you respect him and the app like all that much more. It's just amazing.
Here's something you don't see on a lot of websites. Copyright 1992 to 2022, bare bones software. Congratulations, Rich, and happy anniversary, 30 years. That's amazing. Alex Lindsay, pick of the week.
So this is the week before NAB. That's one of our big conferences. And so you start to see announcements and keynotes and so on and so forth. And of course, for office hours, this is, a big couple weeks because we have lots of coverage. And
you should just go down there and do the whole thing from
So
NAB.
We have, I think we're going to have 5 teams on Monday, 5 teams over the weekend and on Monday that are all going down and they're feeding it all. So they're going to be shooting a bunch of video.
You have guaranteed that Twit will never again do an event like a conference or bother. How could you compete?
Into his signal.
How could you compete? We should.
So they're going to shoot a bunch of stuff over the weekend and then they're going on Monday. They're going to go live into office hours. Is just going to on Monday just keep going for a couple hours they're live from and we'll be jumping from team to team, and we'll be kind of the hub. We'll be office hours, on Monday morning. Anyway, so we're working on that, but Blackmagic went ahead and did a keynote yesterday, and I have to admit I'm not surprised. I'm not amazed by Blackmagic very often, but I'm amazed. So what they did is they have a Blackmagic cloud. But it's not a cloud. It can be. You can use Dropbox and eventually Google to do this. But Grant really hates subscription services. So he goes on a tirade at the beginning, which is probably the biggest attack on subscription services ever. But then he talks about it, and what they've done is they built kind of a hardware version of this, is that I can take all of my content and plug it into something and share it with people all over the world. But it's really pulling from my system. Now that may seem, on a home connection, that's not a great thing. On a business connection, that's not a big deal, to be passing this stuff back and forth. Anyway, but what happens is it localizes all those copies, or not. It can send proxies. It can do a lot of other things. But you can do things like live sync, which is like you can play back together and talk about things. You can have a colorist in one place working on it, the editor continuing to edit, the audio people working on it, and it's all coming together, and it's basically being networked, through the cloud with this hardware. And the interface is beautiful, the control is beautiful. And for all of us that worked in the cloud, that's not what cloud software is known for.
What is
really
Emery Wells
going
to do about this? Because he is selling a subscription version of this, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, but I have Frame.io opened right here. I don't think this really competes with Frame.io right now. It does have some features like that because you can share things out and have people give comments and everything else. So it's the first step towards Frame.io, but it's definitely not a replacement. And I don't think that they're going to spend a lot of time being interoperable. So Frame.io works with many, many, many different editors. And even though Adobe owns it, I don't think that's going to go away. Whereas Resolve is really going to be Resolve. You're like, this is going to work really well if you're in a Resolve environment,
right?
And so I think that, but it is a really fascinating approach to this.
We could use this because we have a 10 gigabit symmetric from Sonic. This has a 10 gigabit port on it. We could probably use this for ourselves, huh?
So you could have a hub server where you put everything, and then it populates everybody else's, as they, depending on their bandwidth or whatever, and then they all have it locally, and then you can work on it. It is a really well thought out, like and I saw that they were going to do a cloud announcement, and we did a watch party. That's what we do in office hours. So we did a watch party for it, but I was kind of multitasking, and about halfway through I was like, oh no, I can't believe they're doing that. And it works really, really well. I mean, on TV anyway. We haven't tested it yet. We're hoping to get some stuff in there to play with it. And you can start with something as easy as something that you just plug your own drives into, but you can get these huge, massive servers that you could put on a 10 gig connection and be loading them up with content. And they essentially become your cloud server, which is for a lot of production companies, the idea that someone's got a closed system to provide everything to everybody is useful from a security perspective as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see how well that works, but it's definitely worth paying attention to, and it's definitely worth looking, if you're a production person, looking at that keynote yesterday. Again, it didn't raise any, I was like, sure. Like I wish I could have an ATEM in the cloud, but I wasn't that interested in this, and I am now. Like we're definitely hoping to test a lot more of it because it looks really impressive.
Sending a note to Russell right now. Yeah. I feel like this seems like something we could benefit from. I think we're using AWS right now.
And they're building this. The big thing is that Resolve is such an audacious idea that we're going to take Fairlight, we're going to take Resolve, and we're going to put editing in there. We're going to put all this. They just keep clumping stuff in, and it's really high chance of failure to do this, but they have so many engineers working on this right now. It's also just amazing to see how many new features are coming out.
But if we're using Adobe Premiere, it probably wouldn't be as good as if we were using Resolve.
You wouldn't. I wouldn't try it with Premiere.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. It's really designed for Blackmagic's own editor.
Yeah, I think that at the rate that they're going, I think that Final Cut and Resolve are going to make the environment for Premiere and Avid pretty difficult. Huh. They have a foothold, so they're going to be able to stick with that for a little while. But there's two apps that cost $300 with no upgrades, no subscription costs, and one is very fast and is adding all this 3D stuff to it, and the other one is just massive. Like this, Resolve is becoming this beast, and between the two of them, I think that the market's getting really competitive in this area, and I can't see a trajectory. I can't see a trajectory for Premiere and Avid, to be honest. I mean, I think they can do fine. I just don't think they're going to. There's any growth there.
5 more Dell workstations.
They work
for
fine.
Premiere. I love Survive.
It's that. Avid's going to be fine because Avid's got a bunch of filmmakers. But the problem is when those filmmakers leave, it's just that it's getting to be it's hard to compete when you're so expensive compared to two that are putting a lot of money and time into and optimizing for a hardware platform. Yeah. Because Resolve is definitely working better on the Macs, the M1s.
Did you see the open letter today, Alex? There's an open letter to Tim Cook about putting more marketing muscle behind Final Cut by a bunch of aspiring Hollywood directors and editors.
Yeah, they don't care. It's too small of a market for Apple. Like it doesn't. Like I get it. I get the letter, and I get that they really want that to happen. But it doesn't make any sense because the market on the bottom of the pyramid is so much bigger than the little market that the directors have. There's just there's no ROI for Apple to go down that path because we're horrible. Like high-end production people are horrible to work with because we have weird little things that we want to do, and now we want a button, and if it's not exactly like Avid, we're going to complain about it. And and it's not exactly, I used to have calls with a manufacturer, and they go, you're the only one in the world doing this. Like, we just want to make sure you're clear. Like 444 capture into Final Cut. Like, yeah, you're the only one that's doing this. And so, and I'm normal in the film industry. There's a whole bunch of us that are the only ones doing something. And building, it's a fool's errand to start building for all of those things if you don't already have them. I mean, Avid's got them. The chances of you pulling someone off an Avid is very low. And the problem is that there's no ROI for Apple. They're going to do a ton of work. They're going to throw that. We're not going to get features that we want as general users because they're trying to make somebody happy. They're trying to make some big director happy, which was useful when it was Walter Murch and he was giving them lots of feedback. Not useful now, And so I think that I get the concept of it. What I do think would be really cool is, again, as a user, what I would love to have Apple do is have a scene. We're paying for this film. We want one scene done in Final Cut, and you tell us what works and doesn't work, and we're going to release that scene because we paid for it. We're going to release that scene to our users so that they can learn how this works. That would be all Apple needs to do. And same thing with Logic. Like they've already done it with Billie Eilish and others. Just keep releasing songs as tracks and keep releasing scenes as tracks and do walkthroughs of those. That's all they would have to do to do everything that they're asking for in that letter. They don't have to change, but asking them to change code for it's not going to work.
The letter is asking for two things. One, more marketing dollars spent to promote Final Cut. But really the issue seems to be that a lot of productions won't allow the use of Final Cut because it just doesn't have the features that those, like collaborative features, those productions need. So they're asking, these directors are asking Apple to add specific features for the...
Again, the number one marketing they could do is release scenes. Release scenes. They don't need advertising. Like it would just be...
passed that on several times.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
They write, it's wonderful that Apple TV has become the first streaming platform to have a Best Picture winner. Disappointing to know that Final Cut Pro is so unlikely to have been a possible choice as Coda's editing app.
But it doesn't, like, the thing is that again, when I
That's
don't know...
not the market Apple's aiming at, is the professional...
I don't know. Renee knows this better than I do, but when I talk to influencers, if they're not hoping to get into the business somewhere, everyone that we work with is using Final Cut, or native apps for the platform, and so it's, and then when you talk about education and corporate, there's just unless the only time you see the other ones is you have people who really think that someday they'll be, a lot of corporate is filled with people who think they're going to someday end up in Hollywood, and so then they want to use the right tool that they can do that with. But when you have people that are paying for the product themselves and don't get paid by the hour, almost all of them are using Final Cut or Resolve. That's the difference.
The thing that irks me more is that Apple has a bunch of features I want in Final Cut, but they don't move them over. Like, I would love all the snapping that's in Keynote. I would love the remove silence that's in Logic. There's just so many little things. Just have that engineer walk over there and move it. Obviously.
Well, I mean, I want to be able to design something. I want all the behaviors that Keynote has should be in motion. Like, if I want that little thing to drop down or fly over, that should be a behavior in motion. Like,
the motion filter should be in Final Cut. Like, just propagate that stuff.
Well, the motion filters you can get into Final Cut essentially. I mean, you can go through the generator projects, but you
can. But I'm too dumb.
Well, yeah. So Alex Goldner can. so anyway, hi Alex. So and Mark Spencer and those guys can but the thing is that I do think I would love to be able to build something in Keynote, open it in motion, and have all those behaviors just come through and then make it better, with what I want to do. I mean, I love the product. I use it all the time. But also for me, there's points where I jump off the product. When I'm doing lots of fast edits and I put things together, I'm using Final Cut. Right now I have a heavy lifting project that has tons of color and tons of complex sound, and I'm in Resolve. You know, like because it's I just don't know how. I don't know how I would do it in. I don't know how I would do it in Final Cut, and to that point. But I don't know. It would take so many coding years for them to close the gap between what Resolve has that I'm using and where Final Cut is right now.
Interesting. So in other words, forget it, guys.
We can keep on having the signed letter. They're just not going to
3 things.
I just don't think that Apple's going to go down that path.
Open signed letters often accomplish very little. It's been my experience.
They're just asking. I think that they're just not thinking about it from a practical level of what it's useful for. And again,
Apple has a giant market of individuals, YouTube creators and so forth.
But the nerd
compared to how many people, how many film productions are we talking? Hundreds? Maybe 1,000?
This is an unconfirmed rumor. So I'm just going to lay it out. Unconfirmed rumor that the number 1 editing app in the world is iMovie, and the number 2 is Final Cut.
I believe that.
The number in installed base is bigger in Final Cut than in the other ones.
Almost guaranteed to be the case.
Yeah. So.
Well, then now
the new iMovie update is great too.
Yeah. Is it? Have you played with it? It's good for, again, it's not good for pros, it's good for home users.
It's good for like if they had live events now, and like I don't have the staff of The Verge. Like The Verge has like 8 people working on these things, and I had to go in there and just put a hands-on together. I don't know that I would open Final Cut. I think I would get my clips, I would open one of those templates, I would throw all of those clips in there, and I would be done faster than if I had to build a project in Final Cut.
My kids put together little trailers in iMovie. They go to the Apple Store, and the Apple Store gives you a little tutorial on how to do it, and then they do it. And I'm like, these are really fun. Like they're really cool, and they're just a template, and they just throw them together, and it pops out the other end, and it's a lot of fun. And it's you're not going to win an Emmy with it, but it's still there is so much enjoyment.
To that point, I mean, Microsoft actually went out and bought a company with a terrible name, Clipchamp, to put this into Windows. So all Windows PCs now come with this kind of simple iMovie style editor. For a long time.
Songsmith flashback. Remember Songsmith?
Yeah. For a long time, Windows came with Windows Movie Maker, which was really pretty awful. Yeah. I mean, but I think even Microsoft recognizes you need to have something for the home market like this.
I think if Apple really wanted to market themselves, I think that they should go do more acquisitions of like Motion VFX, which builds templates for motion that work in Final Cut. Just buy them and then triple their staff and let them just keep building. They're the coolest templates, and it's and when you open in Motion, there's all the pieces there. You can pull them apart. You can actually learn a lot just by opening their projects. And so like I always think Apple just buy that and just bundle it in like you do with effects, sounds in Logic, and doing more of that. I think Apple would do better, just giving us more grit and stop worrying about Hollywood. It's not they're not
level tools.
It's just such a tiny little market, and they're so difficult. Like it's not like they're.
But remember when they launched Final Cut, they got Walter Murch to use it. I mean, they made a big deal. Like, oh look,
that was because. That's because Avid said that they were dropping the Mac when Apple was trying to survive.
Oh, that's
so they got into cross. They got into a cross. They crossed Steve. This was a
Steve.
Final Cut. Yeah. Final Cut was a little hobby until Avid wrote that press release, and then it was a weapon. Like it was, it's that scene in Unforgiven where he's kicking the bejeebers out of English Bob. He's like, I'm not kicking you, Bob. I'm kicking all the other people, all the other guys that are going to come here. I've been telling them out in Kansas and Nebraska that, this isn't, there's no gold here. And if there was, you wouldn't want it. So that's what Apple was doing with Avid.
And incidentally, while they did get a lot of mileage out of that, I think Murch has since said it was a very hard thing to edit.
He said it.
Yeah. Even then.
Oh, Cold Mountain.
Yeah. Cold Mountain. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but he made it happen. I mean, here's the thing: is that engineering, that in one version it jumped, 10 versions. It was amazing, and it tells you what happens when you're dealing. And again, it's one person. It's not all of Hollywood. It was a person, the right person, that's going to give you feedback on exactly what needs to happen next. So
yeah. All right. Wow. This was good. I think we had some of the best conversations of the show were in the interstitial conversations and the picks of the week. Thank you, gentlemen. As always, a learned panel. Renee Ritchie, youtube.com/Renee Ritchie. Secret project with Georgia Dow going to be public at some point?
Yes. Not announced yet, but yes, we're prepping. We're working hard.
Will it
be funny to make? make videos that you never. I make a lot of videos that I never release, and so it's like the secret project that will always re-secret. I just make videos and put them on.
Not
the
like Prince. I don't have a vault full of music videos for the apocalypse. These stuff is going to come out.
Well, we look forward to it. And in the meanwhile, youtube.com/Renee Ritchie. I like this. This is good. You've now got a playlist. Start here, get Apple Smart Fast. Very cool idea.
Oh, thank you.
I like that. The playlists, I think, are very valuable. And then, of course, there's the Renee Ritchie reaction shots of all kinds.
Well, I was just trying to think, because everyone is super excited about the M2, so I was trying to figure out, but if we look at the A14 compared to the A15, and you look at a really good deep dive, like a Niantic produced, you could start to theorize out what M2 will be compared to the M1. So I went through that mental exercise.
Right. Somebody was asking in the chat room, and I don't know, what is the clock speed of the M1 versus the M2? The actual... Apple never says.
Well, we don't know M2 yet, but the clock speeds for the M1 are the same as the A50. The M1 went up by 10% or something. It went up by 20%. It went from 3.0 to 3.2 and 3.2 to 3.4. Sorry, 2.8. The efficiency cores went from 2.8 to 3.0, and the big cores, the P cores, went from 3 to 3.2. And we anticipate the same thing will happen with these next cores because of the new process node, and because Apple can push it a little faster and bigger enclosures. So I'm figuring like a 10%, 8 to 10% bump.
Okay.
On frequencies.
Clock speed isn't by any means the most important. Even Apple was at great pains years ago to talk about the megahertz myth. We haven't been megahertz in quite some time, but
and Apple will drop it. They don't really care about being top right-hand corner of the perf graph. They would much rather have longer battery life. They'll trade that off every day.
Right. 3.2 is not shabby. That's a decent clock speed.
And turns out, all the ones that go faster, they need, even in phones, they need vapor chambers, and Apple hasn't resorted to that yet.
Right. Andy Anaka, when are you going to be on GBH next?
Day early this week, but 12:30 on Thursday. Go to wgbhnews.org to stream it live or later.
And is your favorite diner still serving the finest cinnamon buns and known to man, or whatever it is you like? We're going to do Andy's diner pick of the week from now on.
I will say that my current favorite diner has a April special of pineapple upside down pancakes that I've been holding out for until a day when I feel like I really, really need pineapple upside down pancakes. It's going to have to happen probably tomorrow morning, I think.
Wow, that sounds pretty darn good.
If you see, this is it's medically contraindicated unless if you feel as though you're going to a diner and thinking that no, I went to a diner 2 or 3 weeks ago, it would be medically inadvisable for me to have a diner breakfast more frequently than once or twice every 2 months. Then you're not dinering correctly. You need to basically say all rules are off. If there is a chocolate fudge brownie pancake waffle with a tiramisu burrito next to it, I'm going to order it.
But don't turn down the Dole Whip pineapple upside down pancake, because that would be a nice topping on that. I'm just saying.
I mean, they're okay with bringing things in from the outside, so I'll think about that.
Thank you, Andy. Alex Lindsay, officehours.global, 24/7, the place to find out about, just about anything you'd ever want to know.
We're talking about this Friday. Our morning session is talking about craft services.
But see, I think that's great. I think fascinating.
Because tomorrow, yesterday we were covering, the Black Magic. Tomorrow we're covering Maxon's launch, and then we're talking about being a host actually on Thursday, but Friday we're talking about Crafty.
That's nice.
I will say though, if you're interested in live events, we are now doing stuff with some concerts. We have, I have a test stage that I'm working on, and every once in a while we get to take it over, and we have one of the top concert directors in the world calling the show from her home in Omaha, Nebraska. And we have people who are coming in to learn to do the camera operation, and there's people who are I was cutting the show in the last one, but you get to listen to the comms. You get to listen to her call the show, and it changes everything about how you think about cutting a show. And I would, if you're into anything like that, I would highly recommend it. We don't put them up online because it's a little more, but yeah. Oh, and that's
Todd Reynolds. Super Saturday. Sabado Gigante.
He's amazing.
Playing the fiddle.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It's right.
I mean, he's like Philharmonic level violinist. And he also, by the way, has a ton of modular synths, and he mixes it all together and he loops it, and so it's quite a thing.
This is amazing. OfficeHours.global. And if you want to hire Alex and his dozen Mac studios to stream your next event, 090.media. 090.media. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us. We do MacBreak Weekly every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC. You can watch us do it live if you want at live.twit.tv. If you're watching live, chat live at irc.twit.tv or in our Club Twit Discord server. But if you're, you don't need to watch us live. If you want to watch us whenever you feel like it, we've got on-demand versions of all of our shows. It's a podcast, really. We don't like to say that, but it is. If you go to twit.tv/MBW, you can download audio or video. You can also get a YouTube. There's a YouTube channel dedicated to it, so you can just watch on YouTube or send clips from YouTube to friends and so forth. And, of course, the best thing to do would be subscribe in your favorite podcast player, and that way you'll get it automatically. You don't have to think about it. Just whenever you're in the mood, you can listen to MacBreak Weekly. And if your podcast client allows reviews, please tell the world about MacBreak Weekly. Leave us a 5-star review. It would make me and all the gang very happy. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next time. Now get back to work, because break time is over. That number again, 8888. Ask Leo.
Did you spend a lot of money on your brand new smartphone, and then you look at the pictures on Facebook and Instagram and you're like, what in the world happened to that photo? Yes, you have. I know. It happens to all of us. Well, you need to check out my show, Hands On Photography, where I'm going to walk you through simple tips and tricks that are going to help make you get the most out of your smartphone camera or your DSLR or mirrorless, whatever you have. And those shots are going to look so much better. I promise you. So make sure you're tuning in to twit.tv/hop for Hands On Photography to find out more.